Can we rise? Right, this meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting has been provided by way of publication in the Hampshire Independent Democrat and Courier News newspapers on or about February 1st, 2024 and January 30th, 2024. In addition, notice of this meeting was posted at the Flemington Municipal Building located at 38 Park Avenue and any handicapped accessible entrances thereto. Posted on the municipal website, provided to the municipal clerk, and distributed to all persons, if any, requesting copies of the same. This meeting is being recorded with both audio and video and may be rebroadcast. This meeting is a judicial procedure. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider when reaching a decision, and the quorum appropriate for the judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Thank you. All right, can we take the roll call, please, Alan?
Mayor Carroll? Here. Councilwoman Pissarro? Here. Mr. Campion?
Here.
Here.
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Dashna?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Ms. Weitzman?
Here.
Domino?
Here.
Ms. Swingle?
Here.
Ms. DeMario and Mr. Eckel are excused. Mr. Show?
Here.
Ms. Kaczynski? Here. Mr. Clarifel?
Here.
Ms. McManus? Here. Mr. Cow?
Here.
All right, item 1 on our agenda is a period for public comment for items not on this agenda. Does anybody have any comments they would like to make? If you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand function. Seeing none, we can move on. Item 2, mayor comments.
Just one thing to report. The chair of the HPC Historic Preservation Commission, our planner Beth McManus, HPC's architectural consultant John Hatch, our construction official John Tillotson, and I are working with the redeveloper of the Union Hotel to ensure that he is compliant with both the planning board resolution and the SHPO permit. Apparently nobody has done that in the last week. So we're going through and working with them, and have already had one meeting with them. We have another one coming up soon, going through checklists and talking to their consultants. So that's a good thing. Because we want to make sure the buildings look like Flemington when they're done, and that has a lot of discretion under the planning board resolution. So that's it.
Okay. All right, item 3, county comments. Adrian?
The only council comment I really have to just make
Excuse me, could you use the microphone?
here. The only council comment that I have is to give awareness that we are working through the budget for the year, and we do get bills in the planning board, and so I will be taking a close look at those going over the next few weeks and trying to go backwards to see what's been approved in the past, to get my hands around what it costs to actually run a meeting and what it costs to support a meeting.
Okay, thank you. Item 4, HPC comments. Dennis?
We had a meeting on February 21st. 129 Main Street was a metal roof replacement and repainting outside that was approved. 148 Main Street, they requested to remove a chimney. We denied that request. It's viewed as historic. There was no evidence documented that it needed to be demolished, and recommended repairing the chimney. Both of these Eileen sent to the board on February 23rd. Third item, John Hatch and I are going to be working with Beth on the next steps related to the historic district map update. And just a reminder, we're having our historic district house tour Saturday, June 1st, 11 to 5. Definitely looking for volunteers to assist, especially the day of. So if anyone's interested, just email HPC. We're definitely looking for volunteers. Thanks.
As the denial that you got, Dennis, is that something that's gonna come up to us now, do we think? I was beginning to wonder what we had to do about that. if anything
We don't
comes
get
up.
variance in the other room, do we still?
Well,
They have the right to.
They have the right to appeal to this board.
I'm just keeping everybody aware that that may come up. Is that right,
They're
Dennis?
they're going back to look at the structural issue. They're also replacing the roof. So we expected that that was gonna have to come back to the HPC as well to just show us what they're gonna replace it with.
Thanks for, the commission's diligence on that, it's a historic structure that we want to know about. So let us know, how that goes, and if you need to, if we may be needing to get involved at some point. All right, professional report, before we go into this part, should I notice to say, can I have,
Motion.
ask for a motion and a second to change the, agenda slightly? I want to bring item 11, the checklist item, bring it up for, our engineer to do that as part of his professional report. So to be
I'll move
official.
to amend the agenda.
Yeah,
I'll second. Help.
thank you. You do roll call on that one? You take a roll call on that thing.
Mayor Karen.
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fasaro,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Giffen,
Yes.
Mr. Dashna,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman.
Yes.
Yes. You know,
Yes.
And before we go on to that, actually, just for the people in the audience, item 7, today, that is being tabled till next meeting, is that correct?
Yes, since we made that change, why don't we go forward and we get to
We'll do
seven,
it
I
then.
can, I'll be very
Is
quick.
it for that, or even.
I'll be right
item
back.
9? We'll be all right, okay. All right, sorry, just wanted to check before we move forward. Okay, so professional reports, can I go through the other professionals and then do Bob last? Cara, do you have anything for us? Ben?
No.
Yeah,
Both.
all right, Bob, it's all you.
Okay, so I was requested to sort of summarize and advise the board on changing the format of our checklist, expanding and changing the format of our checklist. As you know, our current checklist does not provide any guidance for applicants that are just before the board for a use variance application. We have one of those on tonight, and we've had several in the past. It makes it somewhat difficult for an applicant to determine what it is they need to submit as part of that, or consequently for the board to decide what it is they would want to see as part of that. It's sort of each one is a sort of not an a la carte menu, so you're, ordering directly in each and every situation. So I was suggesting we use a format that I developed a number of years ago. I provided you a copy with the most latest version of it, which is what I provided to the town a few years back. It's really a format change. I mean, the information you would put in this checklist would essentially be your current checklist requirements, unless you wanted to expand upon them and by adding some other elements to it. But the basics of this gives an applicant, even if they're working without the benefit of professionals, to understand what's required for the submission. It breaks it down into what's required in the way of documentation and what's required in the way of information to be incorporated on a plan that accompanies the application or related documents that accompany the application. It's a relatively simple format. What I have found over time, it allows me to significantly reduce, if nothing else, the number of pages my completeness reports might be, because right now I have to tell you, it's item number 1, this is what your item says, and this is what I'm saying about your item. On here, basically, it'd be in an editable format. I would basically just saying, yes or no, did they provide the information, advise you whether or not they're asking for a waiver, and then a recommendation over here. And whether I'm recommending, again, the board makes the determination whether I'd recommend the waiver be granted, either as a permanent waiver or temporary waiver, or if the item be deemed incomplete. So it simplifies the whole process. My letters that would accompany this would essentially just be telling you what the application is, what documentation you got as part of that application, and then refer to the checklist. Items on here where I'm recommending a denial, on my letter, might elaborate a little bit more as to why I think, denial is worthy. Or in the case of waiver, I just think the waiver is reasonable. Sometimes we'll just summarize and group them all together, and then just at the end, like I do currently, just summarize what if you're in agreement with what I'm saying, this is the action you would take. So it's more format, and it's, I think in the end of the day, it streamlines things. If you want to see specifically board members interested in any item that would say denied, they go on the checklist and read exactly what it is, and go on from there. So, the checklist is part of your land use ordinance. So if you're going to amend it, you're gonna come up with a format. If you want, I could edit this, take your current checklist and edit this to be consistent with what your current regulations are. We could also streamline it. There's some things we're doing now. The current checklist says an applicant submits X number of copies of a submission, but we're really only requiring 4 or 5 copies. So we could tailor this to what we're not only what our current regulations say, but in reality what we're actually doing. Once that document is before the board, if you're satisfied with it, I believe the process would be you would recommend it to the governing body, because I think they have to actually introduce it first. And then it's a land use ordinance, it actually comes back to you in case they make some edits to it. And then it goes back, if it's accepted by the board, or recommendation goes back to the board, to the governing body, and they adopt it. Once it's adopted, then it can be published and to be part of your, probably on your website. Applicants could just, access it from there. It might take a little, people might get a little intimidated maybe by, the number of things, but it also goes through each type of application. It just indicates whether that information is required or not. On the more simple applications, there's a lot of this that's not required. And of course, on the more detailed applications, the majority of this is required in one way or another. That's my reader's digest.
So thanks for that. The reason to put it on the agenda today was that Bob explained what will need to happen for the whole thing to happen. But at this point, we're just in a situation where the board has a chance to quiz Bob, and today we would decide whether we want Bob to go ahead and do that work to create that for us. Then it would come back to us for review and discussion in depth. So at this point, we're just discussing whether we want him to do this work or not. It's something we feel we want to do, you feel you want to do, right? Is it clear? Like, just keeping it to that level today. We're not going to get into the weeds of what might be in it right now. We're going to ask Bob and his expertise to create that for us, for what he thinks we should have. We can then all look at it, review it against our ordinances ourselves, and then so that totally open to discussion for that process.
It's 2 questions. So I'm going to make sure I'm understanding correctly. We're talking actually about 2 different things here. One is to simplify with this rubric form sheet existing requirements that we already have to facilitate reviews being faster. Then the other piece of this is also creating from scratch creating the checklist of items for what we've called, a variance only or a bifurcated application, right? Because we would want to have the same mechanism in place for major, minor amendment, right? It would be one sheet, but we also need to create a checklist of what we would need to review a variance only with no site plan application.
No, it's all in one. Every type of land use application is on here, and there's a number of these items that, for example, if the item doesn't apply to that type of application, it's not checked.
No, I understand, but like right now, we have nothing in ordinance saying what is necessary for a use of a bifurcated application, right?
Correct.
But we do have ordinance
Yeah.
existing where you're talking about the stuff that's for major site plan, right? So we would need to have some, obviously you'll make a recommendation, there'll be some list of things, right? That would say, okay, this is what our professionals would need to review a bifurcated application.
Correct, you don't have that currently, so yes, you're right.
Okay.
Right, so we'd
Makes
be
sense.
creating that part as well, and so the checklist would be cover all of it, but right now, we don't have ordinances to cover some of what we're proposing.
Right, obviously, all this is, and all this requires an ordinance change regardless.
Mhm.
So if we're doing it, we might as well just do it.
Right.
Makes
Exactly,
perfect sense.
yeah.
I'm assuming the draft on this was for Frenchtown or Clinton 2018. So in the past 6 years, has anything changed? Did they adopt this? Has it been working?
Oh, they're all gonna, yeah, this, actually, I went back and tried to remember, I think I first did this for West Amwell, like maybe it was close to 15, 16, maybe even 20 years, I don't remember where I first started. But just developed before, and then we just used it in other towns have picked up on it. Even ones that I haven't represented, I never copyrighted it, somebody just.
But it's been working. I mean, so it's just, there's no issue.
I think it works. You can ask applicants, you can ask,
I was just gonna say,
he thinks it works.
Bob,
I can tell you, I do.
with the stormwater laws changing it, and now they've got this shade tree ordinance that the state is imposing on all the municipalities, would you include language asking if they've done? The answer is it's up to us, so that would be.
Yeah, it's your checklist. I mean,
Okay.
you think there's something,
I mean, I would
if you
like,
think there's something on what I give you that's onerous and you don't think you need it, you take it off, or you want to modify the
well,
wording.
I mean, the laws are so onerous and, you know, and I hate, and I really don't mean this in any pejorative way, but in the last 2 years, I have found that a lot of professional engineers, especially in smaller firms, are completely unaware of what the state has been pushing down to the municipalities. In fact, we've heard it here at the planning board over the last 2 years that they weren't aware and didn't know. And we've got a redeveloper who currently is now at the DEP, had no idea, I don't know how much money this guy spent on plans, and it's being blown up. I mean, Liberty Village is being blown up because of stormwater rule changes, and now the shade tree ordinance, or the shade tree law that they put in, we have to do that too. I think those kind of things, and whether or not they, somebody needs a DOT. I don't know if Hunterdon County's on here, if they need a county permit to get onto a county road, but, we do have a number of state highways in this town. I think if they've applied to the state for a road opening permit or whatever, I think that should be on here. I certainly think, I'm speaking for my champion, whether or not they've put in the Form A.
That's a requirement of yours, that would be on there.
Yeah. Okay.
If
For
this
those
is
who
not
don't know
going,
what the Form A is, that's the form our sewer department
Yeah.
and water use.
a requirement here, the submission of a stormwater, analysis form. It's not gonna go into detail what the law requires. It's just, you're required to submit a form. Again, you gotta keep in mind too, this is completeness. This is not into the merits of any application, so we just wanna make sure on a major site plan application that if we know a stormwater report is required, it's on here, you have to submit it. Whether the report that ultimately gets submitted is a piece of garbage or not, you won't know that until you actually review the report.
But
And
if
we
the
don't,
applicant needs a DEP permit, for whatever reason, a stormwater permit, and this is a question I have for you, should that be on here? Is a DEP is DEP permit required? Have you, if yes or no? If yes, have you started the application process? Because that could blow up an entire cycle. We could have wasted a year of our lives just to then come back and say, oh yeah, I couldn't do that.
well, I'll to some extent defer to Karen, but this can't. You can't, a checklist is generic, it's supposed to apply to anything, so you can't tailor it necessarily to cover any possibilities. And normally, any action that this board would take would always be subject to if there's permits required from an outside agency. The ones that are on here that like Soil Conservation District is on here, County Planning Board is on here. But once you get past the county agencies, if an applicant needs a DOT permit, you can put it on here and they can just tell you whether or not they need a permit. But again, I'll defer to Kara. I don't believe the board can hold off completeness because an applicant hasn't applied for the permit yet.
And you certainly can't hold off approving an application. Okay, every application on the local perspective can be subject to receipt of county, state, any other local higher approvals. You could certainly say that, ask that question, is required. I have seen some checklists that do require proof of submission to a county, proof of submission of a DEP application if necessary. I haven't really seen that challenged as far as how it's proceeding, what the status is. But I have seen that as a checklist requirement, but I've also seen the applicants request waivers because they're saying, well, we want to choose to go this route first before we spend the time and the money on a DEP application. And then it's up to the board really to determine whether that particular situation warrants it. And most situations it would.
Maybe just have so much floodplain in this town, you know?
Understood. But again, like Bob said, ultimately, at the end of the day, they can't proceed with any approval review grant without obtaining all of those final supplementary approvals. And at a certain point, it's kind of up to the applicants to what kind of risk they want to take.
And the only side of the whole fact that the whole process of determining completeness is once it's complete, then the clock starts under land use law, depending on the type of application, how much time the board has to review it. So the whole idea here is to make sure you get everything, you're saying you want, you granted whatever waivers you're gonna grant, and that everything is on the table before the clock starts.
What I was gonna say before is I do a lot of applicants work in town of Clinton and this particular checklist and in other towns too that use it and does make it very clear, makes it very succinct, makes it easier for the professionals to review, for the board to review, to understand. It's very, I found it very.
That's certainly good to hear because that was one of the drivers wanting to do this, is to make things more open, very clear what we are looking for, and then to save the applicants time and money in terms of how much time it will take Bob to review it, for instance, his thing, and wasting time. Let's be clear on the outset what we're looking for. And some of the details that Bob's talked about is certainly then what we would do at the next stage, everybody. We would have lots of opportunity to ask Bob to add certain things in, and then we have the opportunity to look at our ordinances and decide what do we want on there and what do we not want on there.
That's what I was
certainly,
gonna say, based on
Yeah.
the level of specificity of the question being asked. And you said you didn't want to go into the weeds, you just want to say,
not tonight.
do we want to have Bob do this? It sounds to me like based on the questions, we do.
Right.
I don't know if
Need
that's
Bob
a
to do it.
vote, right?
I want him to do it, need him to do it.
Right.
Yeah, that's basically right. So there's plenty of time for us to add in any things we want, and it's gonna be after a discussion, but by that point, hopefully we've got over this hump of all these applications we have, and we have a meeting where we can really get into it and really discuss it and have a working session however many it needs, to get this clear and usable for everybody and to help everybody. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for the discussion? Hannah and Dennis and Melissa and Michael? Nothing, you all good?
Great.
Good, excellent. Good to hear. So then I guess we need to ask for a motion.
Yep.
To ask Bob to continue his work preparing a sample checklist for Flemington, specific to Flemington's ordinances as discussed right now.
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
I'll second that.
thank you. Roll call, please, Ellen.
Mayor Carroll.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Councilwoman Fasaro.
Yes.
Mr. Campion.
Yes.
Giffen.
Yes.
Mr. Dashna.
Yep.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman.
Yes.
Me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob.
So I'll get started on that. I'll probably get some input from Carol, if you're doing that.
Right, yes. Thank you.
Do we want to have a couple of board members and there was kind of an ad hoc subcommittee to work on this, or would you rather not?
I was wanting everybody to be able to have input on it, so what I'd like to do, I was thinking, if anybody else has any thoughts about it, but what I was thinking is if Bob creates what he thinks we need, we all look at it. If that process then becomes, we find that's unwieldy and it's not working for us, then we can discuss reducing down to, if we can't get it done. I would like everybody to be involved because it's such a big change for us and a big thing, right? And bringing everything in. But if we can't get it done with all of us and it's too many cooks, you know, then we'll have a committee. Is that fair enough to say?
Was that a state? Mr. Cook?
No, it was not intended. It was accidental. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, so did we take a roll call on that?
We did.
We did.
We did.
Thank you. We did. Thank you, Bob. So yeah, just keep us updated about when we'll think about when in our, meetings we can slot in that discussion based on how things are moving ahead. We'll keep updated on that. Thank you. We're not going to set a date like that for them. Yes. All right, let's move on to item 6 for approval of minutes from the February 13th, 2024 regular meeting. They were all disseminated last week, I believe. I saw those. Does anybody have any comments or amendments that need to be made on minutes that they read? No, seeing none.
There was one small typo, I think that should be that.
This is so unlike mine. I love.
That's.
I think for the whole year, that's one.
That's it.
That's it.
All right, so can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Go.
With that revision.
A second, with that revision. Okay, Sarah, second. All right, take the roll call, please, Eileen.
Mr. Cook? Councilwoman Fasaro?
Yes.
Mayor Carroll?
Yes.
Mr. Trickler?
Yes.
Ms. Giffen?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Ashton?
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, item 7, Cara, I'm going to need your assistance on this one. I believe council has asked to leave this to the next meeting.
Yes, so I think we had discussed briefly that what they were coming in for was a request to amend one of the conditions of the resolution. They were going to come here before the board tonight and ask and go through our normal procedure, which is to go step 1, which is, does the board members that voted on the resolution feel that amending this condition in the manner requested would have changed their vote? And if so, they would have to notice for the change. If not, then they could do it without notice. And I had some discussions with council and I said, you know, out of an abundance of caution, why don't we just notice and come before the board and ask for your request? So that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna notice for the next meeting. And come, and nothing else will change. They're still asking for the same thing. They'll make your presentation. But they're just gonna do it based on the same notice that was required for the original company.
And everybody's received a copy of their red line request of the change of the.
I believe so. That was part and parcel of their initial
Make sure
request,
everybody
right?
has it so that you can think about it. If you have queries, we can't talk about it right now.
Exactly.
If you have any queries on why this is a thing or why this is a whole issue and what's happening, feel free to contact.
They can contact me, but
Just
I
the
am gonna leave
technical
it to
knowledge.
council, yeah, to.
Can I ask you a question, Sarah? When they do that, does that open up the resolution for other changes?
They can ask for any
No, when we
changes. The board can certainly ask anything that they want of an
I
applicant.
don't know.
But, yeah, I mean, they're essentially reopening discussion.
Okay.
And would that be limited to the members that were eligible to
Correct.
vote on the resolution?
So, yeah, those of us listed there, please review and understand that as well we can before we get to that discussion next time.
Yeah, so I'm happy to answer any technical questions anyone might have. I'll leave the arguments and
Yeah,
that they're gonna make up to.
it's just an unusual thing, so I thought if it's not something we've done before. people have
We've done it
questions about
once
that.
before, just for the people that have been here before. I believe it was the billboard application. There was a landscaping question that had come up.
Right.
So they came in and they asked
The
for
single
legal.
billboard.
It was more of a, yes, correct.
Right.
It was more of a timing or a bonding question. I don't remember specifically, but that's the only other one that I can recall.
Well, we did one last year about interpreting what, expanding the conditions of an approval with, for Barber and Beauty to include other personal type.
We did that as well. We did that
Did
as
that
well.
more recently.
Yep, correct. Yep, that's the other one.
I'm only saying that because Mr. Bloomberg's in the audience.
I'm gonna be upset with everyone, that's right.
That was the other one.
Okay, all right, I just want to take one to another. All right, item 8 is a resolution for our annual report.
So that will be on just quickly,
Oh, sorry.
that'll be on for March 12th. Now, there will be notice, but just for anybody that might be here for that, that'll be on for March 12th.
March 12th is filling up again and again. Okay, item 8 is the resolution of our annual report. That was issued by Eileen. There was some last minute changes. Because I asked Mr. Cook as his role as chair of the SRC sign review committee to add that on. So our ordinance says we have to, so I thought, I want to make sure we're doing this right. So they kindly pull together the additional pages that you saw.
So we can, if everyone wants to take a look at that and take a look at the attachments and we can discuss this, or any comments anyone may have at the meeting on the 12th. The resolution itself is standard, it's basically carried over from year to year. The attachments that are different, and I basically included everything, from the actual, determinations that Eileen prepared to just the summary of basically everything the board did in 2023. And also the actions of the sign, for the sign review committee. So what I've left blank in the event that the board does want to discuss and adopt the resolution tonight, what any recommendations may be. We can put that in the after, or we can just utilize that one, or if we want to hold it and have a discussion at the next meeting, we do that as well.
Right, well, the board like to discuss anything rising from the report, yes, Jeff?
So the one thing that I would add, we're already doing, but I think it should go into the report, which is to establish a checklist for variance only applications. I think we'll signal the governing body that we are going to be doing this anyway, but that they should be aware that it's coming. That was something that we ran into several times last year, and I think it'd be worth, I mean, we agree we're going to be doing it. I think it just, to document it in the transmittal to the governing body, I think just would be the logical thing to do.
Okay, and do we need to identify it separately, the items that Mr. Cook noticed that was you described
Right,
it as what our whole.
There would be a recommendation to the governing body on signs, because if you read our report, it's really twofold. There were some signs installed throughout the borough without the approval of the SRC. I can only assume that's the result of our zoning officer transition, because things just got lost in the shuffle. However, some of the signs that have been going up are what I would refer to today as a banner, a vinyl banner, which we at the sign review committee would never say you could put a banner up as your sign forever. But our ordinance doesn't specifically say the use of vinyl, paper, non-permanent, magic marker. I'm not sure where to draw the line here, because it's what's happening is if the sign review committee doesn't get the application, which we have aesthetic rights that we can make recommendations for. And in the past, we have said things like, well, you can't use vinyl. Well, where is that in the ordinance? Well, as part of the aesthetics. Now, seeing that some signs have gone up and there are some vinyl signs, which certainly won't stand the test of time. I think the ordinance should just flat out say, non-permanent materials or something like that. That there should be a change in the ordinance, because when people read through the ordinance, the fact is not there that you can't use a non-permanent material to make your sign.
So do we want to make the recommendation specific as to material, or do we want to say review the signage ordinance to clarify which signs must be referred to the SRC?
Well, both. Like I said, I think it was just a miss. So we review all signs other than highway retail. And it's just, again, there was a miss. And when you look at the date of the misses, it was during our transition. So it's like nobody's fault. Just trying to go through it.
Well, to the point on signs, the one sign issue that to me was glaring last year was the one for was wellness that was going to be painted on the window. And I remember you specifically, Todd, saying this was never envisioned when we did this ordinance, and this is how times have changed. So I think that needs to be looked at too, whether if we want to address it pro or con.
Not everything can be covered, right, in an
Right.
ordinance. We try to, but again, yes, I think we should just, like to Jeff's point, signal to the governing body, we're going to make a recommendation. It will not be earth shattering by any stretch of the means, but it'll be more a technicality as so the zoning officer can say, oh, to cite Mayor's example, yeah, I didn't see that in there. Or look, there is something in there that gives some discretion, or however it's written. So.
I think it could go in as a general, we're going to look at this
Yes.
this year, because it does tie into, I'm going to bring it up later in the committees, but there's some work that might need to be done that will tie into that ordinance anyway. So we might need to be looking at that ordinance
Yeah,
as a whole related to some other aspects.
The
So
second
just do a general,
yes.
we might need to be looking at that sign review ordinance this year.
And for the board's edification, when you review the ordinance on signs, even though we wrote it, seems like yesterday, but it was 2019. And, for example, there's a form out there that the borough secretary is supposed to have, the borough clerk. I couldn't find it. I'm not sure. They can't find it either. So I think we have to reissue a form. And so we have to really go back to the ordinance and say what's still valid and what's not.
All right, that's great. So that's just capturing that really to signal that that's going to be, we'll have to add that into our list then when we talk about committees on that aspect later.
Okay, so I've got those two recommendations. Any others, either generally or specific?
Yeah, can you just speak to the new people about what the idea is behind this in terms of reviewing our variances and why we do that
Sure.
for them?
At the end of each year, the municipal land use law requires, the zoning board, in this case, the joint land use board acting as planning board, to review the variances that have been granted, in town. With the mindset of saying, okay, if you have consistently granted a variance from the front yard setback requirements in your residential zones, then maybe you might want to look back and figure out whether or not that setback is still valid at this point. And just kind of gear you towards giving an overview, which you guys are doing anyway, and you're pretty, you know, up on that, but this is to kind of guide you towards doing that and make a recommendation to the governing body as to what may need to be changed based on what you were granted, because you're really not supposed to rezone by variance. You're supposed to do it by ordinance changes, and this is what kind of helps you make that determination.
Does anybody have any from the report was issued by Eileen? Does anybody have any items like that that they want to flag up for us to add on to this resolution? I don't personally, but let me start checking with everybody. Everybody online, Hannah and Dennis, Melissa or Mike? Nothing crops up? Anybody here? No.
Mike, I don't know, Carrie, would this be,
No, it's a,
would this be the time to look at, because I know Mike's had issues regarding the Form A, regarding, you know, I brought up, you know, whether or not they apply for the sewer water. So I don't know if we would initiate a look at that ordinance.
I mean, listen, in the past, we've made recommendations that don't necessarily fall squarely within those four corners, and again, just to kind of throw it out there. I think we've talked about it in connection with the checklist. What we can say is, you know, Jeff recommended incorporating, establishing a checklist for variance only applications. We can also put in there an overall checklist revisions to incorporate whatever else is necessary,
Right.
something along those
just-
lines.
Just as an FYI, I mean, we had a conference call today with our council, our general council in the municipality about the reservation of water in a multi-stage project when the first phases have built it all and then they want more water. And that is, you know, that is a real commodity in the borough. So, you know, we're reviewing all of that right now. And that's not a land use ordinance. It's a water sewer ordinance, but it should be looked at. I mean, I think it's important that this board knows when that change is gonna happen, whenever that happens.
Yeah, I think that is definitely more of a borough issue because we don't really have any involvement in allocations or that sort of thing. But certainly the borough can bring that up at any time.
so other than that, and we added those items in,
Yeah.
can we then, does the board feel we want to?
If
vote on this
everyone's comfortable, we can
resolution
do that.
today? I'll bring it to the next meeting. We're good? I think we should just get it down today. We've got the, let's just get it down. All right, so can I have a motion to adopt the annual report and send it to the governing body?
John, can we have the number for that resolution? It would be 5. 2024 for us. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, so it would be a motion to adopt resolution 2024-5 with the recommendations that were placed on the.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Alan.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mayor Carroll,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fasaro,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Dashna.
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman,
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll make those changes to incorporate those along with the voting. And I'll vote.
Thank you. Okay, so item 9, completeness. We have a change in this one, last minute change today.
Well, we do have counsel here. I can say to the board that the letter that was received earlier today from council indicated that they are going to address all of the items noted as incomplete in the report. See if you want to make any statements to the board.
Yeah, Steve Brunsberg on behalf of the applicant, T-Berries. We did receive Mr. Clerico's report this past weekend. We know that there's items in that report that we have to address. We're going to have a plan revision to address things like the setbacks and things of that nature. There might be additional waiver requests that we're going to do, but we understand that tonight you're going to deem the application incomplete. We asked that we're going to jump all over this and get it out there because we need to open up T-Berries really soon. So if we could be put on the agenda for March 12th for completeness purposes only, assuming we're deemed complete on March 12th, we'd like to notice for March 26th. And we would like to do that notice at our own risk in advance. And that's kind of why I put that in that letter, just in case we're deemed complete on the 12th, which I expect to be.
Okay.
If we don't have the ability to notice on the 13th and March 26th.
Right, right. That's why I'm giving the heads up that I am hoping to be able to notice in advance for the 26th at our own risk, knowing that, we're hopefully going to be deemed complete on the 13th, sorry. And if we're not, then we'll.
Okay, I'm just, it's your risk. Today, do we deem this incomplete or do we table it with no further notice required that the completeness here and will be at the next meeting? How do we do it?
So there's no notice for the completeness.
Uh-huh.
That's just Bob would typically go through his report and then sometimes the applicant would say and make comments as to why the board should grant waivers in certain circumstances or not. If I'm hearing correctly, what you're saying is you agree with everything in this report, or at least.
I don't necessarily agree with Mr. Clerico's report, but we're going to, there are a number of things there that I wasn't even going to be able to argue with you about. So I know that we're going to have to submit additional information. There might be additional waiver requests on the 12th, but I have our engineer taking a look at it. He just had shoulder surgery 3 times. So they weren't able to get something together in time.
Well, we certainly appreciate that we can have the full completeness request all at once and do it in one meeting rather than.
And
Let's make
making
more.
the arguments now and then divvying it up later, it was easier just to ask it for it to be tabled. But understanding you're going to deem it incomplete tonight so that your clock doesn't start running.
But when do you think it will be resubmitted?
Hopefully next week.
Will that be enough time for you to review?
I mean, we're gonna be piggybacking on something I already wrote, so it should be. I will be submitted, it should be that heavy.
There's issues about where the right of way lines are, and where the setbacks are for the walk-in cooler. So I need my engineer to put that on a plan.
Should be gonna happen, they didn't do it, or they're asking for waivers.
Right. We usually ask for 10 days for our professionals, but we, have to work within that. Right?
Friday at 11:59.
The board can certainly consider this request. The applicant is saying he would be doing it at his own risk. In the past, we have liked to have an application deemed complete before we go ahead and notice.
Right.
Due to the circumstances, due to the request, due to the fact he's putting it out there ahead of time, I mean, it's really up to the board. But it would have to be completely understood that if it wasn't deemed complete on the 12th, then obviously there's no.
Yeah, and if we don't have what we need in order to review it correctly in time for the 12th, that's on your risk too, right?
Understood.
Karen, there's just, for the 26th, this is all pending, submission of other, revised plans as well. But there are two public, hearings that have been continued to the 26th, which is Wartsville and the Chick-fil-A.
We also understand that I don't want to sit here for 3 hours hoping to get heard. So if it's clear that we're not going to be able to be heard on the 26th.
But, you know, those plans have not been submitted, so there's no guarantee that they will have those plans in, so I just want to bring it up so that
And I
everyone's.
appreciate that. And if the board says, hey, Steve, you're not going to be able to be heard, that those other two are in front of you, then I would just ask at that time that an announcement be made. This just allows us to try and move it along.
Absolutely. No, just hope that we can get.
How many times has Wordskill canceled on us and moved, and how many times have Chick-fil-A done that? I don't feel compelled to be
Right.
kind.
Well, let's
You know,
see when there are submissions.
Can't believe I'm kindness, but you know, I mean, I just, you know, I think this is a no quantity little business in Flemington. So far, I've been answered for anything.
Right, but I'm just saying, let's see when if we're still, and we might not come with that plan, let's see.
I mean, like, Mr. Blank still asked for
Right.
an extension.
That you have a question?
Yeah, there were a couple items in the Boston Fitness report where you were asking for input, from me. And I thought it was on landscaping and lighting.
Okay.
And I just thought since you're here and you might want to get the benefit of the boards in
I
the
can-
direction on those items.
Lighting, we didn't plan on doing anything other than what's there now. But on landscaping, that's one of the issues that I'm gonna be asking the engineer to throw some landscaping on there. With respect to that, walk-in shelter. I talked to my client about that, so we're gonna have landscaping shown on there.
It would be, I was at the site tonight, on my way here. It would be helpful to at least identify where the light poles are on the property so that we can determine if there's opportunity to add. I suspect we're not gonna need to subtract, but whether or not there's opportunity to add light poles, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. We're, and I don't want to get into the nitty gritty here, but we're really just putting in a walkout freezer for the restaurant going into that building. So the extent of the improvements here, we're really trying to be limited and able to open up this business. So getting into a whole new lighting plan in the parking lot, is something that we want to try to avoid.
And to be fair,
Right.
I'm not asking for you to add a lighting plan with the lighting levels throughout the property. I just am looking for the location of the poles on the plan.
Okay.
So Cara, if we deem it incomplete, we have to have a motion to deem it incomplete, I say that.
Correct.
To a vote on that simple level.
Why don't we do that first, and then we can talk about the second request, to be able to be placed on the March 12th agenda for the next completeness, and to notice of development.
Okay, so can I get a motion to
I'll
deem this
move that we
incomplete?
name the application.
I'll second.
Roll call, please, Ellen.
Mr. Cook?
Yeah.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Carroll?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fasaro?
Yes.
Mr. Campion?
yes,
Yes.
Mr. Dashna?
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then we need a separate resolution to be able for them to notice for the public hearing on the
Yes, so-
assumption that the completeness goes ahead on the 12th.
Correct, but what they're asking for is to be able to notice prior to being deemed complete.
At their
because if
own
they
risk.
wait,
At their own risk.
so at their own risk. The only thing I would want to reserve for the board is if the application is deemed incomplete on the 12th, which I don't necessarily suspect it would be, but if so, then they've reserved the right to have you renoticed for whatever that next meeting would be.
That's at your own risk. I'm just saying.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
All right, roll call,
What
please,
she
Ellen.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Carroll?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fasaro?
Yes.
Mr. Campion?
yes,
Yes.
Mr. Dashna?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman?
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So item 10 is public hearing for Golden Heart Homes LLC, block 28, lot 8, block 7, Maple Avenue. This is a use variance application, so this is for the Board of Adjustment only. Our
Okay, so let the record
class
reflect
one,
that.
class two members are recusing themselves.
I don't know, you don't.
That's why we did the check. Before. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. I'll just have a look. Let's just. We have all the main members here again.
Except for Brian.
For Brian's here.
Sorry, I didn't see Brian. Brian's back.
Okay. Yes, we have the alternates on the set. So we have everybody else on four members on that here. Hannah's here.
Yep.
Mike.
1,
2,
5.
We actually have, yes,
Yeah.
I showed this here, which is an alternate.
And
Shows
Melissa.
an alternate.
It's an alternate.
Well,
So-
let's try.
So essentially what we're doing is we're replacing the class one and class three, two of the alternates. Yes, but for purposes of, discussion, only 7 can actually participate.
Right, yeah, full.
Yes,
And we have the full members.
we do.
Alternates can win.
Only participants.
Fully participate. All right, we reset. Here we go. Board of Adjustment. Here we are. Board of Adjustment assemble. Okay, so this is item 10. Use variance application. Oh my. Was this an application? I mean, at one point you were putting application numbers on something. Are we continuing with that? Or did I go lose my?
I can do that.
Thank you. It helps me. I like to have unique identifiers for things. We tend to call them different things. So, thank you. Let me know in a minute what that might be.
Okay.
All right. Excellent. Over to you.
Put my thumb drive in here with my exhibits and it's saying you have to format your disk. That's a problem.
Oh dear.
He wants to turn your camera on.
We do that first.
Mm,
Formatting my disk is a problem because then it says you'll have to erase everything. Yeah, don't do that.
So-
So I didn't do that.
Could you move the microphone closer to? Yeah, we're just doing some technical aspects right now, I guess. So
So it works.
is everything on there? Didn't you issue these today?
I
We
did.
have them.
Yes.
I
So
did.
can
I
we?
do, and actually they are posted onto the website.
Right.
Everything that I-
Go to-
All your
Today?
exhibits.
Yes.
All the, yeah.
If you go to the website, you should be able to share.
Well, tell you what, why don't I start? And then when we get to that point, I'll pull up the website.
Everyone, yeah, I think we should, sounds like we should be able to capture them because you set them on today's exhibits, so they exist in our.
Our system.
Yes.
So Steve Gruenberg on behalf of the applicant Golden Heart Group Home LLC. They are the prospective tenant of property known as 47 Maple Avenue, Block 28, Lot 8 in Borough of Flemington. We're excited to present to you this application to provide a daytime community inclusion program for developmentally disabled adult people. It's essentially a daycare for developmentally disabled adults, providing educational and vocational activities such as group therapies, social skills training, volunteer work, and the like. It's technically not a permitted use in the TC zone, and your TC zone was amended in September 2023. But essentially what we're doing is moving into the old Trinity and Farcio office space, which were legal offices, and having this adult daycare facility there. I have 3 witnesses this evening, and that's going to be the principal of Golden Heart, who's Barakisu Langan. And then I have the real estate agent, James Robinson, to provide some more site-specific information about this particular building and site. And then we have our professional planner, John Tykina, who will provide the planning testimony in support of the application. The only variance relief that we believe we need is the D1 use variance. And we are going to be presenting proofs that this is an inherently beneficial use. An inherently beneficial use under the municipal land use law is one which is universally considered of value to the community because it is fundamentally serves the public good and promotes the general welfare. And such a use includes, but is not limited to, a hospital, school, child care center, group home, or a wind, solar, or photovoltaic energy facility or structure. Our proposed use may not meet exactly that definition, but boy, it's close when you come to like a child care center or a group home. Those type of things that have been found to be inherently beneficial use as a matter of law, we think that we fall right in with those type of uses. God bless you. And Mr. Tankina will give us all of the support for that. When you have an inherently beneficial use, it's not like the Medici standard where you have a much higher standard of proof. There's a lesser standard of proof called the SICA standard, and I'm not going to go into it now because your eyes will roll in the back of your head. But we're going to let Mr. Tankina go into it. It's a much less standard of proof in order to show that the use is suited for this type of site, even though it's not specifically permitted. So with that, why don't we get right to the testimony, and I'll have Barakisu Langen come forward.
Okay, so before we get started, Eileen, you have copies of all the proofs of publication and notice.
Thank you.
In order.
Yes.
And then we'll just mark preliminarily as A1, the application and all documentation. A2 will be those notices and proofs. PB1 will mark Ms. McManus's report dated February 23rd, 2024. PB2 will be Mr. Troutman's report dated February 27, 2024. And PB3, we have a letter here from the Flemington Borough Fire Safety dated December 18, 2024. So these were completeness reports?
Yeah,
All right.
I indicated the last meeting, since there was no site plan documentation, I wasn't until the report.
I'm sorry.
So, Barry, if you can come forward.
Shall we swear in on the?
You want everybody-
Everybody at once, and then it's one shot.
Stand too, please.
And then when you come up to testify, if you could just spell your name for the record. You swear the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Okay. You can take a seat next to me. You are Barakisu Langen, correct?
Yes.
And
Please
your
spell
name
it for the record.
just gonna spell it. It's Barikisu. Is your first name?
Yes, please.
And your last name is Langyin, correct?
That's correct.
And Barry, why don't you tell the board what you plan on doing in this existing office space in terms of your adult daycare center?
So, Golden Heart is an approved provider agency by the Division of Developmental Disability. We have been approved for different things to do. One of them is which is community inclusion. Community inclusion is they come up with it, the state come up with it because our developmental disabled individuals, most of the time they stay with their parents or their families in their home. Some of them are in the group homes, and they don't have anywhere to actually do for activities. So the state has come out with this community inclusion / day program that they go there during the day from 9, like around 9 something to 2:30 to have activities. Like we teach them how to get into the community. We some of them are high functioning, so they come into the day program. We do we teach them basic ADLs, which is activity of daily living. They can go into the microwave, heat up their food, set it up, eat, go to the bathroom themselves. So stuff like that. And I look around, make a research, and I think, Panther County, Raleigh, and Somerset, we have a lot of group homes that they are looking for a program like this to attend, but they don't have any. So I decided to come.
So this facility is regulated by the Division of Disability Services, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And your proposal is to have up to 28 clients. correct?
That's correct.
And it's my understanding that you have essentially 5 clients. And then there's one counselor for each of the 5 clients,
Yes,
correct?
yes, that's correct.
And you'll also have an on-site behavioralist, correct?
Yes,
What,
yes.
what does that person do?
So behaviorist is a professional, it's more like a doctor, but he's more into the behavior issues, because some of these individuals have like autistic disorder. So then they have repetitive behaviors. We have behaviorists on site where they look at them. If they have behavior, they go talk and they make a plan, like a plan of care for us to follow, and then get them back into their routine. So that's what we're gonna have, this behaviorist on site,
And then you're gonna have one on-site manager, which is you, correct?
which is me.
The program does not provide overnight accommodation.
No,
correct?
that's all. No.
So, why don't you give the board an idea? It's my understanding that these people can't drive to the parking lot, correct? They're actually picked up in a van.
Yes.
And, the counselors themselves, how do they get to the site?
So, we have vans, we have many vans that pick up these individuals from homes and the group homes. But the drivers are those that work there, they are the workers, we call them DSPs. So in order for me to hire them, they have to have a license because we don't want a whole lot of people. So they go to the home, they pick up this individual. The driver is a worker, and then one person will be sitting in the van with them. If we have 3 people in the van, it will be the driver and another DSP to come on the site, bring them to the program, and then we work, and after we drop them off.
Okay, so the counselors themselves are picked up by the person driving the van, and that van also picks up the clients as well.
That's correct.
So there aren't a whole bunch of cars coming to the site because they're all the workers are coming into the site by the van.
By the
correct?
van, that's correct.
What are the hours of operation that you expect?
So we start around 9-ish to 2:30. So by 3 o'clock, everybody be dropping off at their various homes or group homes.
So you're only there during daylight hours,
Daylight,
correct?
that's correct.
And there's an existing ramp to the building, correct?
Yes, which accessible ground, yes.
It's a wheelchair accessible so that that's not an issue to get into the
To the building, yes.
And what are the size of these vans? Are they like minivans?
The minivans, yes.
And where do they park? Do they park on site or do they leave?
So it will be like 2 or 3 of them they pack on site,
Okay.
yes.
And so you're expecting 2 or 3 minivans at most, plus maybe 2 more vehicles, 1 for you and 1 for the behavioralist, correct?
That's correct.
Up to 5 parking spots that you're actually going to require.
Yes,
The parking on site is more than adequate for what you need for your limited purposes.
yes, yes.
And the only portion of the building that you're leasing is the Trinity and Farfield part, the inside part, which is approximately 4,728 square feet.
That's
correct?
correct, yes.
You have no need for dumpsters and you have no control over the remainder of the site, correct?
No, yes.
You're
that's
only
correct.
leasing that internal space.
Yes,
And we're not proposing any exterior improvements to the building or the site because we really don't need any. We're just it's renovating the existing interior space, correct?
that's correct.
And your research has found that this is something that would be a benefit
Beneficial to- yes,
and needed in 120.
that's correct, yes.
I have no other questions for Ms. Langen.
Okay. Well, the usual way we do it is we have our professionals then ask questions of the witness and then the board members. So professionals, Regular questions?
I just had one question. The minivans, will they be parked on site after hours of operation, or do they come home with the people?
No, they come home. They don't park on site.
No, no overnight parking.
No overnight parking.
Anything else on that?
Yeah,
No, that's-
okay, I got a couple of questions. In terms of you said the counselors are picked up, so they won't have to park on site. Does that apply? I guess ultimately I'm asking, what if somebody lives an hour away? Is that simply a barrier to their employment, or will they indeed be picked up? I'm just looking for a little more certainty about the number of cars that will be parked on the site. I'm wondering about employees that may be quite far from the site.
Well,
Or maybe
can I ask it a different way that
Yes,
might,
please, that's a little garbled. Yeah.
in order for an employee to, work for you, they have to be able to ride in the van because the clientele needs that supervision, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So any of the employees, counselors, regardless of where they live, they're gonna be picked up in the van because part of their job responsibility is to ride in the van with the clientele.
Yes, we have routes that we assign to different drivers and with different vans, which van is going to different routes. So if we're going to like Hunterdon, if we're going to certain area where they have like group homes, it's one van and then the workers will pick up the people and bring them to the program.
So you don't expect any other parking need other than the 2 or 3 vans and the 1 or 2 spaces for you and the behavioral.
Yes,
And there won't, you don't expect there to be the need for any parking spaces for the counselors because they're always going to be riding to and from in the van.
yes.
Thank you.
You-
And then, you said there's no need for a dumpster. I'm just curious, does that mean that you'll be able to use the, dumpsters that are on site already?
For internal garbage.
Or, yeah, I guess how will garbage pickup be handled? Because I understand you may not need a full dumpster devoted to yourself, but surely the site will generate garbage.
Yes, and the inside garbage will have, garbage cans inside where we have like garbage bags, we put, like clean up, put it in and then tie it. But then I'm just going to ask where we put it after we have.
Yeah, we
garbage
might have
inside.
to ask Mr. Robinson
Yes.
that actually. I think the important, my question was, we're not in industrial use that needs a big dumpster for anything. It's normal office garbage use.
That's fine. I just want to confirm that there's no need for an addition. This is not going to trigger the need for an additional dumpster. So the existing ones can be used on site at that site.
Yeah.
And then the last question I had, and maybe this will be better covered by Mr. Testino, but you indicated that that there's a need for this use in the area, that area group homes in Hunterdon and Somerset counties are looking for programs like this and perhaps for parents with their children as well. And I wonder if you could add some numbers to that in the sense of, is there a certain number of group homes that you're citing, or what information are you relying on to indicate the need for this use?
Okay, so, I'm not relying on just like 1 or 2 group homes. They have a couple of them. And I also have like a friend that works in those group homes. So, what happened is if there's a client, 2 clients in one group home that needed a program, the state reach out to me. That, hey, we see that you have this kind of program. This person, like last week, I have a request of a referral from here, Amsterdam. There's a young lady that living with mom is tired. They want her to go to a program like this, but they don't have any. So, but my reply was, I'm working on opening one so that we can take on those kind of clients. So things like that, like we're not taking care of just, or working with just one group home, but it's a whole, like Amsterdam, Raleigh. So the states look at who is in need, and then they reach out to me. If I have the, the capability of taking the person, then yes, I say yes to them, and then we go through the process, and they come on board.
One of the things that the board will need to evaluate in its use variance is going to be about identifying the need for the use. It's part of the inherently beneficial test. And that's why I referenced your planner, that your planner will testify to. And I guess that's really the question that I'm trying to drill down. I understand that the state's reaching out to you, folks are reaching out about looking for placement of individuals. But I guess I'm trying to quantify the need to the extent possible.
Yeah.
If there are 40 group homes in the state with for daytime programs, if there are X households in the state in need of daytime programs, or if the state licensing or the approval process where they approved you as a provider, if that's indicative of the demand in the area. So that it's sort of a big topic, but that's what I'm curious about is there a way to quantify the need to help the board evaluate that?
I don't know if there are numbers that you can put on it, but generally, is there a need that you can express from the state wanting these type of programs, or in the local community that you're more aware of that there's a particular demand for adult daycare centers? Is there an influx of them, and then that this isn't something that's really needed, or is there something that this is something that is a benefit to the community because there's a demand for it?
Right, this is a name that is beneficial to the community because I don't have a number on it. But yes, there's a lot of reach out, referrals that is coming in a lot for these kind of programs. So, I think it's going to be beneficial to the community and also for the parents that need that relief at home.
Mr. Pikina can provide additional testimony with respect to that, because I hear Steve in the background.
Throw something.
I'm still trying to figure out how to get the documents. Well, take 5. Any other questions?
No, that's all.
Thank you.
Just wondering, maybe we're gonna hear this from another witness. Is they're there during the day, is there any preparation of food or I can't tell from the documents that were submitted today if there's a kitchen here or what?
Yes,
Or what kind of activities are occurring in the various rooms, but can you elaborate on the day-to-day, what goes on inside the building, what services are being provided?
so, we'll operate on day-to-day activities where we come out with, activities like some of the bingos. We play bingo inside there. We do that, and during the week, we go out to like excursions. Some of them like to go to maybe the farm, and so like in a week, 2 days in a week, we take them out to what they would like to see. And also in terms of the food, what happens is they all come from like homes and group homes. So the group homes do give them breakfast, which and their lunch they carry to the premises. Yeah.
That was it.
Yes. Is this just a Monday through Friday operation, no operations on
Yes.
Saturday or Sunday?
Yes, please.
And does each of these vans, when it's running its route, does each van have 2 counselors on it, one driving and one riding? Or how's, is
Yes.
that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And then if you need one counselor for 5 clients and you were to get up to 28 clients, I guess you would possibly need 6 counselors.
That's correct.
28 clients.
Yes.
And then you would have 2 in each van, so you'd have 3 vans with 2 counselors each in it. But I'm not sure how you would carry 28 clients when you have 2 counselors in each van. Would you possibly need another van or a bigger van, like a minivan from ECT?
No, we don't need a bigger van. So, the 3 vans those are the ones that go to the route and pick up the clients to the premises. But the workers, if there's a worker that don't go, like they don't come with a van, we have additional van that can just pick them up, drop them off and leave. Because I also have programs where we can pick up people, like the same, individual disabled people to work and, take them back home. So when they come with the workers, drop them off, they have to go to other places and do other work. And then when we close, they come back and get the clients or the workers and they take them to their various homes. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Try.
Okay.
I think I do.
Okay.
And then, when a full van arrives at the site, it would just take a regular parking space, and it would be like me, if I had a huge family, we'd all unload and walk in the building
Yes,
out of a parking space.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
you are.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the board. I'm gonna go to the boards that are online first. Hannah, any questions for this one? No? Mike,
I'm good, thank you.
thank you. Dennis,
Good, thanks.
Melissa,
Excuse me. Sorry, my voice is going, so I apologize if you can't hear me that well. I just have two questions, I think, 'cause I think some of them are already answered. I did take a look at the interior pictures that were provided. Are there any additional entrance and exits, like an emergency exit or anything? Because I wasn't able to tell from the actual pictures. Or is it just that main entrance and exit?
The exit, that might be a question for Mr. Robinson. So,
okay, Melissa, you hear that? The next witness might be able to answer that question better.
All right, then I think that was all I had. I think the other ones have been answered during the testimony.
Okay, thanks. Let's start with you, Anthony.
Thanks. So you testified that there would not be a need to park the van on premises overnight. I believe you said never. Could there be an opportunity or a scenario where you may have to park a van, it breaks down, somebody's sick, unforeseen, instead of putting on the record that there would never be a van there overnight? Could there be, in a rare instance, a van parked there overnight?
Oh, yes, yeah, that's a good question. That's the circumstances when that happened, let's say that one of the van breaks down, we might have to leave it or I will tow it. So, maybe a mechanic nearby
Okay,
to get it fixed.
thank you. Thank you. As well as, might there be an opportunity or a scenario where a worker, I'm just trying to make sure that we don't use absolutes like never park your car there. I missed the van, I drive there myself and I say I'm gonna catch the next, or I have to pick up my own kid, but I'm gonna work half a day, or I'm sick and I have to get a ride home. Just wanna make sure that there's testimony that says there may be an opportunity for a car or a van.
I think so.
Depends whether we want to get some additional testimony.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, that was it.
Lena?
I think I'm good for it.
Okay.
I'm good.
Just really quick. So part of, I think, some of the questions that Beth was asking, and I know your planner is probably going to provide other testimony. I just make sure that I have a good understanding. You're licensed by DDS, right, Division of Disability Services. You're running for this facility. You've got other programs and facilities that you run.
I don't have a facility, but I have other programs. Like we like I said, we go to the homes to take care of this individual, and then we also have transportation, the approval for transportation, whereby like the individuals that the high functioning, they go to work. I really have somebody right now that will pick up, like they need wheelchair accessible transportation. So I do those things.
So you're already providing services to
Correct.
to folks who would be clients to the daycare facility, either in their group homes. You're also doing transportation to sheltered work environments and stuff like that. So this is what I'm getting at is, yes, you've got a group of potential clients for this day facility that you've already been working with.
That is correct.
And facilities that you've already been working with.
Yes, please.
And they are generally in the Flemington area.
No, it's all over. I have, one in, Freehold and, Long Branch.
Okay. So, in your experience working, providing services to developmentally disabled adults, you've made a decision to open this facility because you feel that there is a need to provide this service.
That is correct.
Okay, that's what I'm getting. Okay, thank you. That helps.
My question kind of follows on from this, and please tell me if I'm going over a lot, I'm not supposed to ask about these type of things, but it ties into this. So basically, the scenarios what you've been running through of how the transportation will work, that's your plan right now. You've not done that in actuality so far. Is that, am I correct in thinking that? You haven't, this would be your first of your own facility where you were providing it off-site, correct?
That's correct.
Right. Right, I'm just trying to understand if we understand how the, I'm saying, the transportation part seems to be confusing us a little bit, whether it will work correctly that way. Then, yes, my other question is, right now you're applying for this space to be able to service 28 clients, you're saying? And is that based on the square footage of the space?
It's based on the square foot, yes.
Right, on what you're allowed to do. Would you, if you have a business and it becomes successful, would you then be looking to expand this location in the future in the same location, or would you look somewhere else? I know that's a
Yes,
thing, but-
based on the square foot, we're going to, once we started expanding more, I would like to get another place here, or also expand it to different areas or towns, so yeah.
All right, okay, thank you.
Can I follow up with that?
Yes.
So the amount of square footage and the number of clients you're permitted to sell, that's dictated by the state, correct?
Yes,
Okay, so you can't just take a 29th person without violating the state licensure, right?
that's correct.
No, I understand there'll be restrictions. I'm just thinking blue sky, if it's very popular, we're in the same, would we be seeing something in the future of an application? I'm just trying to, I know we will have that. We'll see that. Okay, that's everything from me. Anybody else got anything to this witness? Oh, Anna has something else, sorry.
No worries. I just had a quick question maybe about kind of the operations of it. So is the intention of this facility, is it, I guess like what is there a turnaround rate for clients or for those that are in it? Like, is there like a graduation? Is it a year-long thing or is it, I understand it's probably by each person or in their individual situation. But is there like, what would be like the turnaround rate? Because you're always trying to have 28, like is someone going to graduate and then you'd be able to get someone new coming in? Just curious about that.
Yes, it's all factored into it because these individuals, some of them go to school and they do graduate. So once they go, don't really have nothing to do at home. So yes, once this graduation comes on, there will be more referrals. That is up to me to take them if the space, I have enough space.
Is once they're in your program, is there a time period that they're only allowed to be in your program and then they no longer allowed to be in the program, they move on, or they successfully complete the program in a way? Or can they just maintain in the program for as long as their services are available?
Yes, they can stay in the program as long as the services are available.
There's no aging.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Hannah, thanks. And yeah. All right, so that's everybody's questions for this witness. Oh, do you have another one?
Oh, do you want to open it to some?
Oh, thank you, Tom. Sorry. We'd like to open it to the public. Any questions, not comments, for this witness? Please, anybody in the audience? Yes, Louis. We'll come up to the.
I'll give it to you.
Okay.
That one may.
Last time we had to use the little we used on the table.
3-1-9. Yeah, that's fine.
We had to have the,
Don't know my age, but 3-1-9.
I can speak to it.
Well, you need the mic, because you can't give everybody else talking the mic. You gotta-
Yes, I have them, but there's some that aren't doing, this is at the beach. How about if I
think
get
you're
a
good.
chair?
Yeah.
If she has space. Okay.
I'm moving up to it.
It said that there was a Lois Stewart, 32 Emery Avenue, Flemington. I live right across. the street.
Here,
Yeah.
it's not gonna go.
So they're really close to you, man.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. The traffic, you said 3 vans and 2 other vehicles. So there would be 5 additional vehicles coming in the morning and 5 additional vehicles going out at 2:30. Is that correct? And we do not anticipate any other traffic other than an emergency vehicle or something if it would be needed. But on a normal day, it would be 5 additional vehicles in the morning and 5 in the afternoon. Okay, thank you. Now I was wondering, you said that you're open from 9:30 till 9 till 2:30. What happens when you go, you said about going to the park? When do you go to the park, and will the vehicles be coming and going at those times as well?
Yes, we go to the park, so like 2 times in a week. And, once we set up going out, we leave in the morning and by noon we back. Yeah, that's certainly, place.
But so there would be additional traffic 2 days a week when those same vehicles that come at 9 in the morning go to the park and then come back.
The same vans that comes in. It's 2 or 1 van will take them out and bring them back.
They don't,
No additional.
but they don't all go to the park. I mean, if you have,
No, they volunteer. So we asked, okay, this week we're going to the zoo.
I can't hear the applicant.
Have to share.
Yeah. So, what happened is, we go around and, ask the, clients, okay, today is zoo day, who wants to go? And then whoever volunteered to go, we take them. So it's not like everybody leaves at the same time.
but the traffic pattern will be somewhat not set. It won't be the same every day then, because if you have more people than will fit in one van, you'd have 2 vans going and 2 vans coming back. So there would be more traffic that day then.
No.
No,
No, there will not be, more vans. So we come in with 5 vans. When there's a time to go, like a day to go out, 1 van with the workers will take the clients out. So it will be left with 4 vans on premises.
so you would only take, regardless of how many people, you restrict the number of people who go to the number that will fit in 1 van.
No, we don't restrict. We do ask whoever wants to go, and if there's more than and 1 van needed, we take 2. So once we take 2, it will be 3 left on premises.
It's fair to say that there may be instances during the week where up to 3 vans might leave the site to go to an off-site thing and then come back before they leave for the day, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
While the address of this property is 47 Maple Avenue, it seems that all the traffic that goes to this site goes off of Emery. Will that be the case with your vans and your cars, that you will go into the site from Emery Avenue rather than Maple Avenue?
Is it fair to say that the vans will come from either Emery or Maple, that it's up to where they're coming from?
Yes.
You think some would come from up the Maple Avenue address?
Yes.
That would be very good, but very unusual.
Is that a question? Gotta follow the rules
Especially for me, Mr. Cook. I
for everybody.
know. I've dealt with you for a number of years.
Okay.
Well, let's get to the application.
I'm wondering, you said you're never open at night. So there'll be no change in the lighting. Okay. How many spaces, parking spaces are required if that whole building were occupied? Do we know that?
This witness wouldn't know the answer to that question. She's only to talk about this space.
I'm wondering, who do I ask the question about signs? Are there going to be any signs?
If you propose a sign, it's going to conform with the ordinance, correct?
That is correct. But the property that fronts on Emory Avenue is a residential lot. So I would want to know how you would put a commercial sign on a residential lot for a business that's in that building.
Any signage would have to conform with the ordinance. That's all I can tell you at this point. We don't have plans for a sign right now. She just wants to occupy the space. But if she does plan on having a sign, it would have to conform with the ordinance.
I also was wondering if you have an expansion in the number of people that are coming to your program above 28, would this business have to return to the board to get permission to be in an additional part of this building, or by granting this usage variance that would permit the whole building to become this program?
If we expand this use beyond the tenant space, we would have to return to the board for an expansion of the use.
There will be, am I correct in understanding that there will be no outside activities for the clients on this property? No outdoor activities. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else from the public wish to make a comment? Any questions for this witness? Anybody online? Seeing none? Thank you very much. Thank you. Witness.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson. Kick you back. No, she comes up now.
Mr. Robinson, your last name spelled Robinson. And can you give the board benefit of who you are and why you're here?
Yeah, I'm a licensed commercial real estate professional based in Flemington, commercial banker in Flemington. I've been licensed since 2016. I have a little bit of background in planning and land use. I was planning board chairman 15 years, I've been in New Jersey planning officials for a few terms and served as the real estate chair of the Flemington Community Partnership. This is one of the last projects I worked on back in 2018 and 2019 was signs. So I enjoyed the discussion very much this evening.
So, and you're familiar with this site, and what's your affiliation with this site?
I am the listing agent for this site.
We supplied the board with some information by exhibits that we're gonna raise up here. The first will be floor plans. And let me raise that up. Oh, I gotta share screen.
I'm sorry?
Was asking Eileen, do we need to give them different permissions to be able to share?
I've got the shares.
If you do on the bottom, you should be able to hit the Zoom.
Says host disabled participants.
The host must enable multiple panels.
I'm allowed to multi-family, what is that?
Only in the original, is it a special, is that what happened?
Under the up arrow next to the green share street button, is your courthouse.
Yes, okay.
It should allow multiple panels.
Awesome. Thank you.
Multiple can share something.
You should be able to share that.
It should be.
I love the estimate, thank you. When I was a chairman, everybody had paper copies.
Well, Jim, you didn't bring them with you, did you?
So we're gonna share so people at home can see as well. This is everything we have on our digital packet, correct? So I don't. Yes.
You want to mark these all separately?
Why don't we mark it all?
So we'll do A3 sheets. 1 blue, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 sheets.
Yes.
And then we'll just identify each sheet. Yes.
I don't know how to get my face over there, but I think that's okay, right? Jim, why don't you explain, I need an original. Which one are we looking at? The second sheet. Third sheet. Why don't you describe, what's the third sheet of floor plan there? Okay, the floor plan that is outlined in blue is what was the floor plan when that was the Trinity law? And commercial facilities like this, all the walls coming down to accommodate.
And so the first sheet, we just go through each sheet as we do, or at least we don't have to do it in order. So we're on sheet 3 right now.
Yes, we're on sheet 3.
That's the floor plan of the subject area.
Right. And the floor plan that we're proposing is.
What are you gonna like that?
Yeah, it's actually the entire building and the subject area is outlined in blue. I hope you can see it.
Okay, so I mean, what we did was we'll mark the whole thing, the whole submission is A3, sheets 1 through 6. And then as they talk about each sheet, we'll identify what that is. So this is sheet 3, that's the floor plan of the building, showing the subject area in blue.
And can you describe it for the board a little bit on the rules? Yes, it is about a 4,700 square foot area. The entire building is about 43,000 square feet. There are currently 9 offices, a conference room, 2 large restrooms, a large entry and reception area. And as you can see by looking at it, there's a large hallway between the offices on either side of that hallway, which was formerly occupied by the Trinity Law Office.
What are the other uses in the building?
There is a railing shop. There is a landscaper in the back of the building. There is a fine art, I'm not gonna call it studio, but things are stored there. Nobody comes, goes. And I think the proprietor is not even local. To that, and there is a railing shop. There, did I mention a shop that assembles golf clubs. That was. Okay.
And the baseball academy.
And the baseball academy, I'm sorry, that's the largest tenant there. That's about 8,000 square feet.
No, when the Trinity firm was there, it was a law office use, correct?
Correct.
And multiple attorneys and staff were there.
Yes, I think he might have even sublet to another attorney.
And the site was capable of handling the extent of those employees and the cars coming in and out for that use.
Yes,
And what we're proposing is that actually less vehicles than would be.
I think it is a less intense use than the law office
In terms of vehicles.
in
coming
terms
in
of
and out.
the traffic, vehicular and pedestrian.
Let's show the board some photos of the interior of the space. So, that is photo number, I'm sorry, they're not in order on the website, that's why when I'm pulling them up, it's gonna be out of order here.
I think we have that one.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, I got that off the website, so you have to.
You don't have that one in my package.
Oh,
It's on the website, and it was part of the email that was later, that was today.
All right, so they call that A4.
right. And can you just describe what's in that A4?
Yes, if you look all the way on the right, there's a portion of the building that is not the subject of this application, where the building makes a turn to the left and forms an L. You can see there is, I hope you can see, there's one door in the corner. That is not the door to this spot. The next door, which is a double door, which has a ADA ramp attached to it, that is the entrance to this subject property. And if you continue left past 1, 2, 3 windows, you'll see another exit door. And that is about where this space ends. There's a large garage door that is part of another use.
Would it be easy to say that if you, unit number 2 is the one set of doors, and the other door will be at the end of the door on the left side?
I'm sorry,
Unit number 2 is shown in your building, has a set of doors on it, is that the first set of doors?
the double doors, yes. The wider doors there is your cursor. If you see where the cursor is,
Yes.
that's the entrance. Those are the doors that have the ADA ramp, and they are a set of double doors. And then if you proceed to the left, there are 3 windows.
Right.
And then that door where the cursor is now is an exit door.
Okay.
And immediately left of that is another space.
So the garage door, with door here, to the left, the far left of the building is a different space.
That is a different space.
And the door, to the left of the 3 windows is an emergency exit door.
Yes, it is.
And, but the main entrance is the double doors with the handicap accessible.
Yes, that's correct.
Identify this, that's Steve.
Picture depicts the wide hallway.
Yeah, this will have to be A5, Steve. You don't have to turn it on.
It's not packet either.
Nope. No, I did.
Yeah, A5, sorry about that.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure it's getting this correct.
And what's A5 predict?
3 offices and a large hallway. A wide hallway.
And
That one we have.
That was a private office. That was Mr. Trinity's office.
Yeah, so that's sheet 5 of A3.
I only did the pretty good.
This one we have to twelve.
Yeah, that's a little.
No,
kitchen.
don't have that one.
Okay, this will be a six. Can you describe the six?
That is, that was used as an employee lounge with a little kitchenette. Shower next to it.
And this one we did provide, which is the six.
Yes, that would be sheet 6 of A3.
That is a restroom. I'm not sure the gender.
One,
That's the nails.
one of the restrooms.
One of the restaurants. And the other is almost identical with.
That is sheet 4. of A3.
In this one, you can see the double doors that I spoke of earlier. A reception and lobby area, and the door that you see open leads to the 3 offices that, and the hallway that we saw in the exhibit. That's, I mean, they're all, the rest are offices.
The only one I think we didn't actually place on the record was sheet 2 of A3, and that's the survey.
Yeah, that was submitted with our packet. That wasn't.
Yep.
Now, is the intent to renovate these into anything more than what we see on the pictures? When they do occupy it?
Is there more space there than?
No, but is this space layout going to change for them once they occupy that area?
Are they going to change the layout within the interior walls, or are they gonna use it as it is?
I don't know the answer to that. They may. I mean, these are temporary walls.
My understanding is as is, they're not gonna make changes.
Okay.
I know that when I showed Barry the space, she liked it as is.
That's fine.
I have nothing else from Mr. Robinson.
Okay, thank you. Professionals? Any questions for this one?
No.
Ben?
This is I had in my report, I raised some issues about the site condition of, are you the right witness for that?
I'm sorry.
The site conditions, the things about.
The site conditions. I spoke to the landlord today about some of the things in the planner's report, and was that your report? And and some of these things I had previously brought to their attention, and they told me by the end of the week those would be the things such as the barrels, for instance. I too was concerned about those when I took a look. Those barrels are empty barrels. They're used as barriers rather than as barrels. But they should be removed, and I think the planner's report said that you want to put a fence there, a gate there, put a fence or a gate, but don't use barrels. And there's some other cleanup items that.
Yes, thank you. So in general, I see the use of the barrels. It seems like there was some debris on the site, and so I appreciate that this is tenancy for a small part of the building, but this is an opportunity for the board and for the borough to look at the whole site. So I would, if the board is inclined to issue an approval, I think that should be a condition of approval just to rectify those issues. I had also noticed that there are some trailers on the property, and I wonder.
There are 2 trailers, and I asked about those trailers, and they belong not to any of the tenants, but they belong to the owners of the property. I do not know who's in those trailers.
I do not know if they are permitted and if they receive permits. So I don't know that. I think that's largely an enforcement and zoning officer issue, admittedly, but I think since the site is before the board, it's it's appropriate to simply question the conditions if there are non-conforming improvements on the property.
Yeah, we're happy to work with you and the board's professionals on those issues. In terms of cleanup,
And if there are any, anything on site that isn't permitted in terms of the trailers or anything else to resolve those issues.
And then my last question is, just a follow-up from the previous testimony. I asked about the ability to, how the site would handle the trash from the dealer tenant. And will they just simply be able to pump the existing on-site dumpsters?
I did make a note of that comment earlier. I don't know if you made it or Karen made it, but I did make a note. Try to find out. I know that the tenants there are now responsible for their own trash. I mean, I think they have cleaning services and where those cleaning services put the trash, I don't know, but I will.
I think that, there are variety, for me personally, not speaking for the board, but for me personally, I think there are a handful of answers to that question that are gonna be acceptable. The one thing that I want to confirm is just simply that, that this is not gonna trigger the need for an additional dumpster. If it does, there may have to be another application before this board, and if that's not the case, then it sounds like this is a landlord tenant, given that there are existing trash, dumpsters located on the site already.
Yeah, on behalf of the tenant, we would be either using the existing dumpster on site or dealing with it in the way with a cleaning service or hauling it out ourselves. But we're not going to add another dumpster just for this use. It wouldn't require it.
Thank you very much. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Well, any questions for this witness?
So the photographs you're showing us, this is the space as it was left by the attorney when he left the facility?
Yes,
Including the shower?
including the shower.
Um,
I didn't see the engineer's report, so,
no, I didn't write a report.
Oh, okay.
Because it was no site plan file.
okay.
We're just hearing information tonight and looking at exhibits that were submitted this afternoon. So no, that's based on what I heard, whatever, and the limited documents that filed. I don't have any other questions. And just maybe for the board's record, the board does have on file a site plan from 1983 for this facility. This is a general observation. Aside from the parking layout striping, which was different on the plan than what I apparently showed in the photographs, the aerial photographs. And they did submit a survey of the current site from 2021. So, but that's a limited documentation you have to work with.
Yeah, I think that survey was prepared when they bought the building. Yes, I understand.
The current.
The current one, when they bought the building?
Yes.
Yeah, and, you know, one of the things I wanted to jump up and say, I was talking earlier, but it wasn't my spot, was when you're looking at your ordinance, there are circumstances that I presented before this board, like we're here tonight, where you have an existing space and you're not proposing any exterior changes. And you're essentially, there's an office space and you're going to be using that office space, but for developmentally disabled people, it doesn't really trigger site plan issues because we're not doing anything that would trigger site plan issues. So if you want to tidy up your checklist, you might want to consider tidying up the ability to have a formal site plan waiver application in the borough, kind of like what they have in Raritan Township, where the planning board can actually say under certain circumstances, well, we can waive site plan. Just throwing my little 2 cents in there.
Okay, thank you. Jay, do you have anything for this witness?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to the board members again. I'll use the one online first, give them a chance. So Dennis? Any questions? Freeze up.
Nothing here. Could he stop sharing just so we could see? We're still seeing the picture.
Sorry about that.
But I have no questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Hannah? No. By shaking the head. Mike, come here.
None, thank you.
Melissa?
Good, thank you.
Go. Jeff, first.
Okay, just real quick. just make sure that we don't, make sure it's on the record. The fact that there is a shower that you put, that was shown in a photograph that you have just presented. There is no intention to use the shower for the use that is in front of us, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, the break room kitchenette that was shown doesn't have, I'm assuming is, if you could just answer like typical office kitchenette, so you're talking like a sink and a microwave and a refrigerator kind of setup, not cooking.
Pretty much.
Right, so there's no capacity for this use to start cooking substantial amount of food. It's more of like a reheat and refrigerate kind of situation.
Correct.
Just making sure.
And I'm sure the shower was there because, and the professionals that were there, they're probably very athletic. Lunchtime would.
My impression from the testimony from the previous witness was that none of those things were gonna be happening here, but you showed a picture that had a shower. I just wanted to make sure for the record. Okay, thank you.
We could certainly put in as a condition of an approval, the board may grant no residential.
Just making sure.
Jim?
No, I'm okay.
You are? Right.
Thank you.
I'm on picture. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like, oh, thank you. Sorry, I should need to write on here. Quickly. Anybody, from the public have any questions for this witness, please?
I'll shout.
Well, let's see.
Lois Stewart, 32 Emery. There was talk about cleanup of the site. Is that something that this board can require? You're talking about, the attorney's talking about no site visit. I like what our planner said, that this is an opportunity for this borough to improve this site. I'm wondering what the legal possibilities are for that to happen.
Yeah, we agreed as a condition of approval to clean up the site as set forth in Ms. McManus's report in terms of the debris and the
Barrels.
Barrels,
Strong
yeah.
debris and barrels.
right, and the trailers, to the extent that they're not permitted, we'll deal with those. Any zone violations out exterior, we would have to deal with.
The other question I have relates to landscaping. Has anybody looked at the landscaping, and if the site plan was done in 1983, I'm sure there have been some changes in requirements for landscaping of commercial sites. And I would like to know if there's any possibility of an upgrade of landscaping for this site as well.
Yeah, this tenant in this proposed is not in a position to do landscaping on this site. And we're not proposing any additional landscaping. We're willing to, make sure that the landlord cleans up the debris in order for us to be able to move in and correct any zoning violations. But in terms of additional landscaping, we don't have a landscape plan. She doesn't have the means or the ability to prepare a landscape plan when all she is dealing with is this interior space.
Okay,
However,
okay, cool.
because I'm representing the landlord, I will communicate to them tomorrow that there was a concern expressed by Lois about landscape.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I just think that it's an.
No comments, no questions, Brandon.
Taking the question, he's agreed to, consider it and take it back to the landlord, that's what I understand, right? Thank you. Right, can I make a suggestion, Mr. Grimble? You've been here before, it's 9 o'clock, we usually try and take a break. I think this seems like a natural place to take a quick break before we start the next witness possession, right?
That'd be great.
So, should we 5-minute breaks, it's currently 9 o'clock, and we go through, some 5 minutes. Here. Back to recording. Do we have to take the roll call again, Clara?
Yes, we do.
Let's take the roll call, make sure everyone came back from break, and then clear that.
With the exception of Mayor Carroll and Councilwoman Pissarro. Mr. Campion,
Here.
Ms. Giffen,
Here. Mr. Hill.
Here.
Mr. Dashna.
Here.
Mr. Coe.
Here.
Mr. Weitzman.
Here.
Mino.
Here.
Ms. Swingle.
Here.
Mr. Show.
Here.
Linsky. Here. Mr. Farrakhan.
Here.
Ms. McManus. Here. Mr. Coe.
Here.
All right.
So I would like to call Mr. Taikina, Taikina.
Thank you. Can you please give the board the benefit of your qualifications?
Hi. I attended Rutgers University. When I finished my studies there in 1992, I was licensed as a planner, and I've had the pleasure of keeping my license for the last 31 years. Most of the time I do this. I appear before planning boards and zoning boards in the state of New Jersey, providing testimony on behalf of applicants. And so I've never been in Flemington before. It's delightful to be here, and you are my 150th board that I've entered.
We should have balloons and.
I love it.
Sorry.
I offer Mr. Taikina as an expert planner.
Anybody have any objections to being on that? No? Okay, thank you.
John, why don't you give the board the benefit of your analysis with respect to this site and the Golden Heart use, and particularly in being inherently beneficial?
Certainly. So I will, I'm actually going to preface it with a brief bit of personal information. Our family is blessed with my nephew Daniel. My nephew Daniel was 28. He is an extraordinarily high functioning autistic adult. So for that reason, I have 28 years of experience working through the New Jersey Developmental Disability System and how it works with my sister and her husband and their other kids. So some of what I will tell you comes from that information, just personally, more about how the services are used and needed, and about the concept of aging out and what that means. So right now, let me do, so got my personal thing out of the way. Let me do a little bit of math. We're here about 47 Maple Avenue, block 28, lot 8. It's a 4.5 acre site on the edge of town, on the kind of the tail edge of your transitional commercial zone district. The site, as Mr. Robinson said, is about 4.5 acres. As I said, it's a 43,000 plus or minus square foot building, consisting of multiple spaces. Right now, I think I saw Jay County before as well. I came up with 65 roughly striped parking spaces on the site, and they're roughly divided between the east side of this site and the west side of the site. We'll be on what is called the west side of the site, closer to the Maple Avenue entrance. And interestingly, that is how I've been to the site 3 times, and all 3 times I came in through Maple Avenue. So that's how I got. That's how Waze get you there, I guess. And the eastern side of the site is really dominated by the baseball academy. So, for example, I believe as Ms. McManus's report referenced, kind of the west side of the site is kind of very quiet. The east side of the site has activity that really picks up in the afternoon. And for example, like today, there were, I believe, 23 cars there. And basically there was 3 different high school teams that were working out in the baseball academy. You know, and their various cars and stuff. So that's kind of the activity, and it's really why our use kind of dovetails very nicely in there. As Ms. Lyon said, we're there, you know, 9-ish till 2:30. Again, after AM peak hour to 4 PM peak hour, very low traffic generator. We have a very low parking requirement. When it was a law office, 47,000 square feet, 4,700 square feet, excuse me, would require 16 parking spaces. So as Lyman said, you know, we think we need, you know, 2 or 3 vans and then the 2 employees. And the board actually did a nice job, I thought, of kind of thinking about the what ifs, what if you, et cetera. So I'll kind of add my what if in there. And Jay was doing the math. What if you get to a full 28, you might need 5 vans, so I could see it being up to 5 vans, plus the 2. So, I don't think we need to keep ourselves in a, in a straitjacket. It's entirely reasonable that there could be, 7 cars instead of 5. I think that's reasonable again, particularly when you look at it, versus the, 16 that would be there as an office. So that's really the operational aspects that, I think are appropriate. The last operational thing, Ms. Langen didn't quite understand the site completely. And again, this kind of comes from my experience with working with different programs. She didn't know she had a lawn. And if you look at the aerial, you see just to the north, of the site, which is to the left, you see that big lawn, that's nice and green in front of the property. That is on the property, and it's actually an irrigated, manicured lawn. I suspect it probably has something to do with baseball academy. When I compare the color of the green of this grass with the color of the green at the baseball fields behind us. But it is a green manicured lawn, so I could totally see a nice June day where everybody decides, you know what, bring your peanut butter and jelly sandwich outside and we're gonna have a picnic time. And how I would characterize that is they would be normal activities that you would see with any office use. We all like the nice days that come in the spring when we can let ourselves out of our offices and go sit outside for a few minutes. So I could totally see that occurring, on an occasional basis. Ms. Langen did a very nice job of telling you kind of the way things are. And then the board, Mr. Cook did a very nice job of pointing out the always and nevers. And we really don't want to be in an always and never straitjacket. I think it's entirely appropriate that the lawn might be used, occasionally, that there might occasionally be a, up to 5 or 7 vehicles. Those types of things. I can give you 25 scenarios when I left my car when they at my office, but that might have had to do with my personal time way back then. But in any event, so the always endeavors, I really appreciate Mr. Cook kind of talking us off of some of these. So we are here to, let me do what I'm here to talk about. We are here to talk about this inherently beneficial use. Ms. McManus's letter did a fabulous job of outlining exactly what the parameters are. Talking about the Seeker balancing test, which I will take you through. As you know, the definition from 40:55T-4 for an inherently beneficial use is a use that's universally considered of value to the community because it functionally serves the public good and promotes the general welfare. Such a use includes, but is not limited to, very important, a hospital, school, childcare center, group home, or wind, solar, or photovoltaic energy facility. So we fully believe that this is very akin to a childcare center and very akin to a school. It is providing a very valuable adult daycare role in the developmental disabilities system for those individuals that do age out. So when an individual is under the age of 21, they have the ability that they're required to attend school if they are able at all. Up until the time they're 18, they're allowed to attend school up until the time they're 21, at which point they age out of the education system. But then they have the other 50 years of their life of what are they going to do every day. And that is a true challenge, and it's a true challenge for caregivers. And first and foremost, and then it's a true challenge for those individuals. What do they do every day for the rest of their lives? And this program provides some of that, whether it is one, just being a place to go, two, providing valuable life skills, just such as operating the microwave, being able to put your lunch out, being able to arrange certain things, file, etc. I'm kind of blessed. My nephew, we laugh. He's actually the only one. He's actually the only one in the family that actually has honest work. He has two part-time jobs that total 45 hours a week, working for Wegmans and for a local law firm. He is the best filer on the face of the earth, and he keeps the frozen food section at Wegmans in Ocean Township sparkling. And both of those companies are to be really praised for what they do. Wegmans could not be better, and they also understand, and also from my experience working with Somerset Arm, where I also work and volunteer at a facility in Hillsborough that I found through a client, fortunately. They're a tenant of theirs. And but what you find out with the development of the disabled community is, and the Wegmans banner is fabulous. My sister came and said, well, we do certain things on, we travel a little bit in the summer. And she stopped there and said, I know that your son will be my best employee that I have, because my other 12 developmentally disabled employees are here every single day. And most of them have never missed a day of work in their entire time working here. So it is really a tremendous thing when we can bring them skills and bring them the ability to be out in the community. And that's exactly what Ms. Lang was talking about. It's bringing community inclusion. How do we bring them into the community on a daily basis? So to give you a sense of the numbers and the need, per the New Jersey Developmentally Disabled Office, as of December 15th, 23, there were 26,873 individuals receiving services from the agency. At its bare minimum, their minimum service would be that they receive literally a disability check. So that is literally almost every developmentally disabled individual in New Jersey. 1,051 of them are in the care of the state at any of the 5 inpatient facilities, including one in Monroe County. So there's an inpatient facility, inpatient in Hunter County. So that means that the other 25,000 are either at home or in group homes and in desperate need of the services that we're talking about. In Hunterdon County alone, there are 397 individuals that are receiving services as adult developmentally disabled individuals. I am unaware of another outpatient adult daycare facility in Hunterdon County. I know of 2 in Somerset County, one in Hillsborough on 206, one in Somerset on Davidson Avenue. They both accommodate about 40 individuals each. Okay. In Somerset County, there are 1,300 individuals with adults with developmental disabilities. So as I know of about 80 that are being cared for, I don't know of any in Hunterdon. So in Mercer County, it's 1,295. In Morris County, it's 1,535. So just in our immediately surrounding counties there, and Hunterdon itself, that there's a good percentage of individuals that are in need of these services, and there just are not facilities in existence right now in Hunterdon County. Certainly not in Flint, but I don't even know of any in Hunterdon County at all. Which, given the income demographics, I'm shocked. That's a different. And the disability payment is required to be taken by the individual. So even it's not something that's means tested. So even if your family is fortunate and you're of means, your child still gets or your adult, 28-year-old adult still gets a disability check from the state, regardless of the fact that he works almost 2 full-time jobs.
If we meet the
the board finds that we meet the definition of an inherently beneficial use, we have a revised positive and negative criteria.
Correct.
For use variance, correct?
Thank you. So, I appreciate that. So yes, so, as an inherently beneficial use, we would, by a matter of law, meet the positive criteria. So the Medici criteria is satisfied, we don't need to worry about why the council didn't zone it this way. We don't need to talk about special reasons because we inherently promote the general welfare. And we don't need to talk about, the Medici criteria, and that's it. Sorry, those two things. So in terms of the balancing test, that goes to the negative criteria. So Ms. McManus did a great job of laying out what those criteria are. The first one is what's the public interest at stake. So we believe the proposed use for adult development to the disabled is quite compelling as a public use, as a public need. We think it serves the public benefit without question. And it will be an asset in Flemington and to the community as a whole. Secondly, you need to identify any detrimental impacts or effects that will ensue from the grant of the variance. We don't believe there are any. In this instance, we have plenty of parking. The use itself is a midday use traveling after AM peak and before PM peak. So it's really all midday travel, really no traffic concerns at all. And frankly, it will largely be unnoticed. Again, the vans are going to come in and drop people off, then they're going to come pick them up at the end of the day or leave at the end of the day and take them home, much like a shortened school day. Thirdly, we need to determine whether there's any legitimate detrimental effects that can be reduced by imposing unreasonable conditions on the use. We don't believe there are any detrimental effects to be considered, but we'd be open to reasonable conditions. One of the reasonable conditions that Ms. Kaczynski discussed was certainly no residential use. I have a shower in my office, so I actually didn't find the shower that unusual. But so I understand why it's there, but I do understand the board's concern that there not be any residential use. And then finally, balance positive and negative criteria to determine whether on balance, the variance can be granted without substantial detriment to the good and without substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. So we believe on whole, the proposal will advance the intent and purpose of the zone plan and the master plan by strengthening the residential and commercial sector by providing a needed service for the development of the disabled community in a way that will benefit the entire community. Ms. McManus talked about in your 22 comprehensive master plan that your TC wants to provide areas for more intensive commercial uses that are not appropriate for or require different uses than the downtown. I think because we have a different, somewhat of a different parking requirement, I think it's appropriate that we are located in a TC type zone. It could be a downtown use, but again, only on a downtown facility that had parking available on site for the vans. That, again, our clients are not going to travel well from an off-site parking facility. And then in terms of your goals of your master plan to protect and enhance the integrity of existing residential districts, certainly we don't impair there. To employ strategies to encourage community and economic development, certainly providing this service in the community, I believe, to be a benefit. Strengthen and enhance commercial sector. Again, I think if we can have individuals in the development in the disabled community that become available to the workforce, they could be valuable members of the commercial sector in town, and to integrate residential and commercial segments of the Flemington Borough to benefit the entire community. Again, I think this is a service that's going to benefit the residents and secondarily benefit the businesses if we have individuals that are able to provide those services to the commercial community. So the specific site is one of the larger TC uses. It has a wide variety of uses, and Mr. Robinson testified. The proposed adult daycare use is not going to interfere with any of those existing uses at all. It's literally taking the place of a law office and doing so in a much reduced impact situation. We do not expect any site issues. Again, we're just reoccupying the existing space. I would expect that, as Mr. Robinson testified, that even things as simple as garbage we would contract with a cleaning service that took the garbage with them and figure that out. We certainly would not need any, site elements to deal with our, to deal with the limited, office type garbage that we will, that we'll have, and Mr. Robinson provided, the information about what the landlord would be doing in conformance with Mr. Fannis's, letter. So for these reasons, I think the board has the ability to make the findings that we are now beneficial use and we meet the SECA test for the negative criteria. And I'm available for your questions.
The transition commercial district allows a number of uses that are pretty similar to what we're proposing here already, including childcare, higher education and training, and community buildings, as well as offices and medical offices. Is this such a departure from those principal permitted uses?
No.
And in fact, the ordinance allows any combination of one or more permitted conditional or accessory uses. So the fact that there's multiple permitted uses on one site is not an issue here either, correct?
Not at all, and I give the borough a lot of credit. You'd be amazed at how many towns do not allow multiple use of property.
If the board didn't find that this was an inherently beneficial use, it's fair to say that we would still meet the standard for a use variance by under the Medici test by showing the special reasons, and you identify the two purposes that would be advanced.
Yes, certainly. So, we could, if need be, follow. First of all, would be purpose A, to encourage municipal actions to guide appropriate use and development of all lands in a manner that promotes the public health, safety, and general welfare. And then G, to provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of uses, both public and private, according to their respective environmental requirements in order to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens.
And under that Medici test, we would be fair to say that for the same reasons that you testified before, we'd be able to show by an enhanced quality proof that there's no substantial impairment to the zone plan and zoning ordinance and the substantial detriment to the public good.
Correct. And I think that it would be reasonable to surmise that the governing body hadn't foreseen the need for adult daycare for development of the disabled. It is a relatively small slice of the population in New Jersey. Certainly, it's a small slice of the population in the county, but it is a very needed service. And, I actually do believe that it will, in the next round of municipal land use law revisions, join childcare facilities as one of those uses that is permitted in every residential district.
I have no other questions for Mr. Tykina.
Okay, thank you. We'll follow our usual professionals first. Carol, any questions for this? Beth, I think you have some questions for this one.
I actually, I did have a number of questions lined up, but Mr. Tykina addressed them throughout his testimony.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. And Joe. All right, let's go online first. Hannah. Any questions for this witness?
I do, and I'm sorry if it's, I had just a question that kind of popped up as we were talking, and if it's something that a previous witness could answer, I'm sorry. I just was curious about if there's any existing video surveillance there currently, or if there's any proposed, if you see any desire or need for it, if there isn't any, at least for the exterior.
Like security?
Yeah, so yes, sorry, video security, just for everyone's sake, or just curious.
Yeah, so Mr. Robinson, we do, and I saw on my site visits, there are existing cameras on the buildings. We don't know how much they function. But there are.
Okay. Yeah, that was just.
Dennis?
And yeah,
Nothing
that
here.
was it.
Well, Hannah, was there something else that I come away from you? Yeah, this is good. Okay, Mike, please.
Yeah, two questions. One, is there a backup generator available for this building?
No.
I'm sorry, what was that?
No.
Okay, also, if there is inclement weather during the hours of operation and it carries over past, we'll call it closing time there, what happens to the residents that are there? Will they stay the night?
No, we will endeavor to get them home. It would function very similar to how our schools function. In inclement weather, they will typically close, for operation. And then, with any inclement weather during the day, you function just like your schools do. You get the children home, in this case, the adults home, as safely as possible, but they will not stay there.
Okay, one other question is, do you follow state holidays?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Right, Melissa, have any questions? Let's witness.
I do have one, and I apologize because it's just kind of like Hannah, it sort of popped into my head. In regards, I know we had spoke a little earlier about licensing and it's done through the state. At what point does the state come in, if they even do, to look at the facility and kind of give the facility their okay?
Oh, are you asking, does it have to be reviewed by the state?
It has to be approved by the state if they have to go through, I believe it's under DHS, because it's Human Services, I think the Department of Disabilities is under.
The applicants are just talking like they're an answer in a second comment.
So yes, the state has the ability to come in anytime and do an inspection after the facility is open.
Does that answer, Melissa?
I think so, yeah, for now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cook?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Brown?
I'm okay. I'm never good. No, and thank you for the testimony. You answered most of my questions. But again, just to put a fine point on the benefit to the borough, and I understand you may not have the answer to this. Testified that there were 397 individuals receiving services from the state in Hunterdon County, 1,300 or so in Somerset, similar numbers in other adjacent counties. Are the data available at the municipal level? Do you know? And there might be a privacy issue why this you don't, but is there a sense as to how many folks are influencing borough?
I have not seen that information in my investigation preparing for tonight. I've only seen it broken out by county, by year.
Fair. Given your experience professionally and personally, is it reasonable to assume that there are at least some of that 397 who live in the borough, that they are generally distributed equally in municipalities? Like, I'm trying to just put a finer point on if there is a benefit directly to the borough residents here.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I know, I'm sorry, I'm just,
No, I get it.
we, not to get into discussion, but I want to make, if we're trying to establish the benefit, I just want to make sure we have as much information as possible, so. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think my things are more for the discussion, so I think I'm gonna partner now. I think it might be more appropriate for discussion between the plans. So, I'm gonna open it up to questions for this witness from the public. I don't see anybody online. If you could use the raise hand feature if you do wish to make a comment or ask a question. I'll give those people time, but in the meantime, in the room, any members of the public have a question for this witness? Okay, seeing none, we don't have anything, I'm not seeing anything.
No, there's no other attendance.
So we have nobody from the public. Okay, so thank you for your witness.
you.
Public, I missed some comments or concerns now it would be, right? Comments, we can comment.
Public comment usually.
Public comments time.
And then you can let the applicant sum up if you have anything else you want to say.
Right. So this is a time for public comment. Rather than questions, you can make comments. Please limit them to our usual kind of 3-minute idea, given the time, and we want to get through things if you have any. If your comment can be limited to 3 minutes, we appreciate it. Any member of the public wish to make a comment on this application? Okay, we need to get you out.
No, I can show.
Okay.
Lois Stewart, 32 Emery. My only comment would be that this is not a particularly attractive site in the borough of Flemington. And certainly it is not a particularly attractive site for the residential neighborhood that's there. So I do not know if there is any way that the board could encourage the owner to upgrade the site a little bit as a condition of the approval. That's my thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any online again, so I guess that's all our comments from the public.
Moves close. Oh,
Maybe close now?
well, he's gonna sum up first, sorry.
No, I think we'd like to sum up.
Sum up first?
Want to sum up?
I'm gonna talk in detail about the SECA standards and go over it one by one. No, I'm not.
Mike, sorry, if you don't use the mic, people are online.
Sorry.
It's really difficult.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go over the SECA standards.
Thank you.
This is a really good use, not just for the borough of Flemington, but it really fits in with the transition commercial zone. When you read the transition commercial zone, you would actually think it would be one of those things that is a permitted use in the zone, but it's just not specifically set forth in there. Bari is trying to do something good in this community, and she's a tenant. She doesn't own the building. She's just trying to lease one space. And needs to get in there as soon as possible in order to get this thing moving for her business. So what I've argued before on this board is that we provided the survey, we provided the photographs, we provided aerials, and we're not doing anything. And in particular on this application, we're not touching the outside, other than agreeing to comply with Ms. McManus's report in terms of making sure there's no zoning violations outdoors and cleaning up the debris and those barrels that are there and dealing with those issues. So we would ask that you grant the use variance approval, and consistent with what we've done in the past on the applications such as this, waive the formal requirements of submitting the checklist requirements for a minor site plan and grant the minor site plan based upon the information that we've given to you. And that would allow us to move forward in actually getting this really attractive use for the borough up and running. That's all I have. If you have any questions or concerns or problems with the application and that you need us to address, I would encourage you to ask me now before you deliberate, consistent with what we've done in the past. So that I don't find myself in the situation having to. Whoa.
Well, I'll ask any of the board members if they want to avail themselves of that offer. Anybody have anything they want to ask Mr. Grunberg specifically about? No.
Okay, then I have nothing else.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So
Now I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
thank you.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Yashner?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so general board discussion on what we want to talk about what we've just heard. If I may start, so any questions? I thought, my personal view, reading your report, and I was like, whoa, this is going to be really complicated. We have a lot of discussion about these technicality points. I'm surprised we haven't had anything before. I don't know if anybody wants to chime in now, but I'm not sure whether can you run through the negative aspects for our plan again, on whether I'd like the board's opinion on how they feel about that too, if anybody has it.
Yeah, you mean the negative criteria?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. You know, one of the, and just overall, I wanted to say there were a couple of things that I thought that I would want to talk about this evening. That after hearing the testimony, I feel more comfortable with, or at least that my questions were answered. So for example, I had anticipated needing to have a much more detailed discussion about parking on the site and perhaps lighting on the property. But after hearing about their not office hours, but their hours of operation from 9 to 2:30, I no longer have any concerns about evening lighting. And also their hours combined with the testimony about the vehicles on the property also give me an increased level of comfort about the parking on the site. One of the points of testimony I think Mr. Chikina provided was about the comparison of the previous law firm that occupied the space that required 16 parking spaces, if I'm not mistaken, and this proposed use, which we heard 5 to 7 vehicles. And so it seems, based on that testimony, that the likely outcome is that there's actually going to be a reduction in the parking demand generated by the property. And so I know that's not quite the answer to your question, but that's, and I'll get there, but I thought that those are two important considerations, two big questions I had in my head when we walked into the hearing this evening. But in terms of the negative criteria, so one of the things that the board needs to decide upon is whether or not you find that this is an inherently beneficial use. Because if the answer is yes, it dictates one set of criteria for consideration, both positive and negative. And if not, it's a pretty different set of criteria that the board needs to consider. But the typical negative criteria, so whether it's the negative criteria for a non-inherently beneficial use, whether there's substantial detriment to the zone plan, and whether there's substantial detriment to the public good, or whether it's an inherently beneficial use, and you're talking about what detriments may occur as a result of the variance being granted. I think that that's also relevant to any detriment to the public good, as well as detriment to the zone plan. So it's a similar considerations. But in terms of the public good, so I think relevant to that is the discussion or some of the things I just talked about in regards to parking, site activity, lack of lighting on the property, or needed lighting for this particular use, rather, there is lighting on the property. But other public good considerations the board should think about is the activity that's going to be generated by this use. One of the things that we heard is that I think there's frankly limited activity. It seems that there might be some outdoor activities, perhaps use of the lawn during lunch hours, something like that, but we're talking about light activity as opposed to an outdoor use on the site. We heard testimony that was akin or similar to some of the other permitted uses in the district. Other aspects of public good, the board might want to consider lack of improvements to the property. So we're not talking about new signage. We're not talking about additional construction activity or demolition activity. It's just simply reoccupying an existing tenant space almost exactly as it exists today. From the perspective of substantial detriment or any detriment to the zone plan, I think Mr. Chikina did hit on those items that the board needs to consider, but just to reiterate, I think the big issue in terms of the zone plan is just simply that the board in the borough recently redid its master plan and recently updated the TC district. So of course we did the master plan in 2022, where we made a variety of recommendations on how to really revamp the TC district, and then that was accomplished in 2023, not too long ago. And so in that respect, I think that the board needs to consider some of the testimony that we heard and about how this use might be similar to, or not in the board's consideration, but how this use might be similar to some of the existing permitted uses in the district, considering childcare offices and things like that. And, consider that information as you weigh to what extent the zone plan is gonna be subject to a detriment if the use variance is granted. And of course, if this is a not an inherently beneficial use, you also have to add in the criteria, which essentially asks, why would this use not have been considered by the governing body, by the council, when the zone plan, zone district was updated? You know, what is, given the fact that the use might meet positive criteria, might be particularly suited for the site, why would it not have been included in the recent list of updated, recently updated lists of permitted uses? And I think the board you'll certainly have to incorporate that. I do want to note that this is a pretty unique use. I'm sure there are zoning ordinances out there, but off the top of my head, I will tell you that I can't think of another one that specifically permits adult daycare. I'm sure there are ordinances and zoning officers that have interpreted the use to be included in something else that might be permitted in the district, but I think it's a unique circumstance to have this particular use specifically listed in the zone.
And are we, I don't want to use the word committed, but the next consideration of that negative criteria aspect of the detriment to the plan, given it was just updated and those things, do we consider that separately from the beneficial use? So we can find it inherently beneficial. We can also say it's detrimental to the master plan. And if if that's the case, how do we then proceed forward?
So, okay, so I think it's a more complicated question if this is going to have the beneficial use. So let's start there. So there's 4-part test for the SECA, and I'm going to review it quickly. The first one, identifying the public interest. I think that's right. It's the need for these types of services for adults with developmental disabilities combined with the lack of similar services available elsewhere. The second step is to identify the detrimental impacts that will ensue from the granting of the variance. I think that's the answer to your question. For the SECA balancing test, that's the first time that you want to start to consider what the detrimental impacts might be to your zone plan, to your master plan. So considering that this use is inconsistent with the TC district, is it inconsistent with the overall purpose of the TC district? How, despite that it might not be permitted, how does it relate? How similar is it or not to some of the other permitted uses in the district? The third step is to determine whether or not there are any detrimental impacts that can be mitigated through reasonable conditions. So are there any conditions that the board could apply to this application in order to mitigate, to your point about the negative impacts of the zone plan, to mitigate the impact on the zone plan? What conditions might not reduce the nonconformity, but reduce maybe it's the public perception of nonconformity from an outside perspective, might move the use or the way it's occupying the building closer to the intent of the new TC district. And then the fourth step is trying to balance that need that you identified in the first step against the resulting detrimental impacts as a result of granting it and considering some of the conditions that would be put forth. So the question about if the board is concerned about the negative impacts, I think that what needs to be identified are what are the negative impacts to the public good? What might those be? How can they be mitigated, if they can be mitigated? And then on balance, what is the result? And then what are the negative impacts to the zone plan? How can they be mitigated, if they can be mitigated? And then on balance, what is the result? Does it lead to a lack of substantial detriment as a whole, essentially?
Okay, so that was a lot, as was Beth's report, but it seems like it's a complicated decision. So I want to get the board's view on the items you said, right? Consider the negative.
Right, when you start with is it inherently beneficial?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that that's the first thing
That-
that the
that-
board needs to decide, because it's gonna dictate, I just went through the SECA balancing test.
Mhm.
If the board votes or finds that it's not inherently beneficial, then basically that four-part step, test is
Right.
irrelevant.
But if you were to talk about inherently beneficial as defined by the law, meaning hospitals, group homes, I'm sure. we'll
Schools,
get that.
houses of worship.
Schools, houses of worship, childcare. So I think this is just one of those things where when you look at inherently beneficial, in my opinion, it's somewhat discriminatory to say, well, it's good to take care of your children, but when they turn 18, it's no longer. So for me, I'm all in inherently beneficial. We can decide the rest of the thing later, but to say that it's inherently beneficial to take care of your children, but it's not inherently beneficial to take care of them when they turn 18, I don't know. It's almost like a oxymoron. Like I can't even imagine how you could not find that correlation.
To your point, the board might be interested to know that yes, childcare is inherently beneficial, as is through case law, assisted living facilities are also, I won't get into details, but they're also found to be inherently beneficial. So we have sort of these two bookends of inherently beneficial for folks that are in need based on different stages of their life.
So do we need to agree on that and vote on that before we move forward to the other aspects? Is that what I'm hearing? Is that the way we need to move forward?
I think that's the best way to do it, just so the board has guidance on which of the standards that went through, you need to apply.
So before we vote on that, then does anybody else have anything you want to raise about that vote? Anything?
I pretty much agree on the fact that between assisted living and the, group care for different people, you're sitting in the.
Yes.
And I think that, I'm looking at it.
Right. Good. Yeah, Simon.
No, I mean, yes, I'm a member of the board. No, I think that this is a gap in the law. I think quite honestly, again, law is the law, so there's no gaps in the law, but the intent, if the intent is to recognize those facilities that are providing for those for whom assistance is needed, assisted living facility, childcare facility, houses of worship, community facilities, schools, those kinds of things, I think that the law may not have caught up to the fact that adult daycare is a necessary thing that benefits a group of folks who need help in the community. And I think that that's, for me, I think that it's a logical extension of it.
Well, and so remember the definition said, I'm sorry. go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, it's not in the letter of it, but it's in the spirit of it.
For me, yes.
Well, and I would even say it's in the letter of it because it says maybe not this particular one, but it says includes but is not limited to.
Right.
So it gives you the capability to use those as examples and extrapolate out to whatever you think is a key for that.
And I think also, you're not only assisting the person in the place where they want to be, but that helps the family that have that person to be able to.
Has there been
better in life?
Has there been case law on, I know, before he passed, my father went to an adult program for seniors in his community, another part of New Jersey. Is there case law that has defined those adult senior center type things?
So not necessarily developmental.
Not developmental, not even a memory impaired thing, just like my dad was bored and my mom needed him to go do something in the facility. But it wasn't like things at the senior center, but it was more of an adult daycare program for seniors. I know that they exist around the state.
I'm not familiar with the case law, there may well be, but I haven't seen.
Oh, Hannah has a hand up. Hannah, you have a comment?
Yeah, I kind of am piggybacking with what Jeff said in that I do think that there's a gap. I have a little experience with the opposite end with early intervention with, my toddler who's not appropriate age for schooling yet. So, and it's widely popular now, but that's that age again where it's kind of caught in between school. And once this is before school, so then what happens after school? It's something that's, necessary now, and it really is. I'm so grateful for it. So just thinking of like the opposite end of it and just having this small taste is just, it's beneficial, definitely. So just as another thought and comment that way, so.
So we would vote on this as whether it's beneficial, we just do that as a separate vote, so we.
So I would
we
move,
to.
I will make a motion that we deem that this, based on the testimony presented, that this is that we determine that this is inherently beneficial use.
Okay, we'll take the roll call on that.
Mr. Dashna?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Campion?
No,
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, so having done that, we then have to consider the negative criteria, do we?
I would say now that you've done that, I think you wanna, consider, yes, you wanna consider the negative criteria, but I would say you wanna consider the secret balancing test.
Right.
So you sort of, you confirmed that you're gonna use the test, so depending on how the board wants to deliberate, the first step is to identify the public interest at stake. And if you recall, we heard some testimony about the number of individuals, the need in the state and the county for this type of a use. So you wanna do that, and then I think the next step is going to be to identify any of the detrimental impacts as a result, and I think that's the negative criteria that you're referring to.
Okay.
So Beth, we can take the testimony of the subject matter expert on the matter of law, and especially the public interest that has. But we don't have to rehash, the public interest that's at stake. We can take the testimony that has been given and say, we either agree or disagree with the public interest at stake, right?
I think so. I would find that, that you've heard adequate testimony to confirm that the need is, and then insert your descriptor, significant.
I mean,
whatever the case may be.
Thank you. I mean, Jeff, I'd see where you were going too with, trying to understand the need for the borough, right? We're here for the borough. But I don't think that data exists
Yeah, if it doesn't exist, that's perfectly fine. Where I was going is to make sure. We had other applications before this board with that question's been raised, and I just wanted to put it out there on the record. But what was compelling for me was the testimony that there are no facilities like this in Hudson County. There's only 2 in Somerset County. Between those 2 counties, you're talking about, something 1,700 people who there are 80 spots for this kind of service. So for me, I think that for me is very powerful indication. We're not talking about a situation where there is a facility like this on every other corner, and that we're not talking about like that there's just that what it appears to be is that there's a substantial unmet need that for me speaks very strongly on the positive side of why this is needed. And again, if we don't data about Flemington Borough, which I know I didn't think we would, but certainly if you think about Hunterdon County and the environments, I think that's for me that's perhaps the strongest bit of information.
And I do want to know, when they talk about the public interest, the borough's certainly not relevant, but it's not required to meet borough need. It's supposed to be, public interest generally, in this case, it's been defined as a state and county need, that this site can help respond to that.
And the other piece for me, and then I'll let other people jump in, it's just that I think that because there's a need for this kind of facility in the greater community, and I'm thinking about where in town this should go or could go, I think that this particular site, because it is underutilized, because it is a little out of the way, because it is kind of tucked behind in the back a little bit, although the other concerns we can talk about, because it is reducing the vehicular trips from a law office that not only has people working there, but clients coming in and out at all times, as opposed to this, which seems a lot less intense. If we were to pick a spot for this to happen in town, like this is one of the spots where it actually makes sense for it to happen in town, rather than, and I don't think this makes sense on Main Street. I don't think this makes sense on Stangl. I don't think this makes sense. I don't think this makes sense on highway retail, in the sense that where we want to have different kinds of uses. I think that this this particular site is particularly suited. I know we don't have to necessarily go there, but like but for me, I think that that's part of what makes, certainly, leans heavily towards granting approval here for him.
And we do allow, as, the applicant testified to, multiple uses on a property. This is one piece of this property. And when you look at the TC zone in general, this being part of it, the idea was this vibrant downtown with concentric circles of things that were less vibrant around it. So when we wrote the ordinance and changed the master plan, I was on that committee, and I mean, I'll be honest, the vision for that site was something bigger, broader. I don't want to necessarily say better, but it could be like industrial, it could be indoor outdoor recreation, it could be a community center, it could be a theater, it could be a college. Like this idea of something big, because this is a big property. Now, to say that that's detrimental, I mean, when we heard from members of the public, it was all about traffic and now any of the uses that we necessarily foresaw there on the master plan there would be a lot more traffic if you were to put, for example, a college on that space, or if you were to put, I'm just reading from our ordinance, light industrial, community center, a medical office, gathering spaces, a theater, indoor, outdoor recreation. So when you think of something like that, while it is not the intent of the TC zone in general, this particular property is sort of it's a patchwork of different rental pieces. And it doesn't negate the fact that it's still in the TC zone and the owner could decide to not lease and turn it into something else. So, it's really hard for me personally to say that it's detrimental to the master plan, because I don't foresee in the near future, 5 years, 10 years, I don't know how long the leases are, that property would be redeveloped into something like a college or an indoor outdoor recreation facility. It's like one of those things where this property is tucked away and this is about the least intense use, surrounded by, right? In on Maple, out on Maple, in on Emory, out on Emory.
And if I could just say, using some of the comments that we've heard in support of the inherently beneficial use, one of it was that this was a kid in childcare, which is allowed in your TC zone. Right. So in case you need any other.
Yeah, and even if you think of childcare there, I mean, you'd have a row of cars every day, coming in, coming out, picking up, and buses and whatever else. So again, I can't go as far as say that it's detrimental to the zoning, because in our zoning, we allow for other things. It's just the vision for TC was something that was larger than we can have on Main Street, larger from a parking perspective, larger buildings. But I don't find this more or less detrimental to the other uses that are allowed in our TC zone. I just think that we missed it too with not saying childcare, but not saying adult care. So.
Right, but if I may, on that point of the detriment to the master plan, if I can be devil's advocate, I don't think it was the type of use. I think it was just the fact that we just changed it. Like previously, when we've looked at one zone and it's different to the master plan, we've been able to say, well, we didn't think of that 10 years ago, or we didn't think about that 7 years ago. But this is literally 5 months ago, or 6 months ago, or when you finish the deliberation. So I think that was part of it, but then we've also heard testimony about the fact that it's the detail, the spirit of the law, the detail anyway, that we could say that it was covered as.
That said, we had no vision anywhere in any of our zone plans for adult daycare. It's not listed in any. I don't think it's listed in any of our ordinances anywhere in any zone.
Right, so it's not like you struck out.
So for me, I'm okay with it because it's not like we said, oh, we have a use of adult daycare facilities that we want in this zone and not the TC. and now they're coming in with a TC when we had just updated it. So I'm okay with the fact that we've never talked about this use before. And it appears from what we heard from Beth, that like, this is not really zoned all that often in other jurisdictions as well. So it's not like we're missing something here, right? There's always gonna be new uses. There's always gonna be things that are not anticipated in our ordinances. And I think that, I don't have as, I hear what you're saying, to play devil's advocate, it's a good point, and you're right. We did the plan updates in 22 and the ordinances in 23. But I don't think anybody anticipated this kind of use, because it's not, we don't have it anywhere in town regulated. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, that's what.
That is true. It's not like we said, oh, TC is not really the area for this. We didn't even
Right.
talk about it. We didn't even, it wasn't even a thought, so.
Right. No, I hear that. We've used that for other things that haven't been so great, but then there's a large weight on this other hand as well that are beneficial on this particular situation. I certainly feel that.
And when I was reading again, just for the board's edification and members of the public and the applicant, I was reading we have multiple TC districts, not just this one.
Right.
They tend to be located near highways, easy access. And we even said things like easy access for cars and groups and buses. And so the intensity we see in the master plan that these TC districts have a higher intensity use than they're used today. But from a detrimental perspective, you always want to be nice neighbors. And members of the public were concerned about cars going in. So I think this is the best option in a neighborhood, quasi-neighborhood setting, because you have to drive down. Versus some of the things we have in our master plan that should the owner say, hey, listen, I want to convert to a college, which is allowed, by the way. So,
all right, so what's our next step then? Are we doing, does everybody on the board feel that they had a say in the discussion, or was they saying anything else? Not seeing anything.
Well, the two pieces of relief that they need are the D1 use variance approval, which we know now is going to be governed by the SECA standard because we found it to be inherently beneficial, and the granting of the minor site plan based upon the documents presented. Because again, we don't have a site plan waiver, which if we did, probably what the applicant would be applying for, but we have to go through the process and based upon the documentation provided, the floor plan, the photographs, the testimony with regard to what they are going to change or not going to change, as the case may be here. That's what we would be basing it on. I did draft some conditions if you want to hear those too as we go through the additional deliberation. I have, to Todd's point, and please feel free, we can discuss any of these and tweak them accordingly. Overnight parking is not anticipated, but may occur on rare occasions, such as if a car breaks down or there's illness with the driver. Signage will be compliant with the ordinance. Otherwise, they'll have to come back for approval. If they expand over 28 clients, must come back before the board for an expansion of the use. The applicant will work with the board professionals and the landlord on cleanup of barrels and drums and debris and trailers on the property to the extent they're not permitted. No residential or overnight use. The applicant's agent that testified will convey to the landlord that landscaping is a request of the board to see if there's anything they can do about that. Compliance with other conditions in Beth's report. And that's all I need.
I have one others, and I don't know if we can do this or not.
Okay.
Along with the landscaping question, Bob mentioned before that there's a 1983 site plan. Okay, so I don't know if we've got jurisdiction to put this in or not, but generally, like if there are landscaping elements, this wouldn't be on the applicant because it's really the property owner's problem. This may be a code enforcement thing, but if there are elements in the site plan prior approval, regardless of the date, that are not being currently done, that's a code enforcement question, but I don't know if we can put it as a condition here. Like if there were trees that were on the original site plan that are no longer there, they're out of compliance, right? But it's not.
I think you have to, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, like, But I don't know if we can make that a condition of this approval. If it is, they're coming here for a use variance and it is they're a tenant and they're not the owner of the property and there's no and I don't know if this is something we just want to like put out there and make our code enforcement person deal with it, but like if there are things that are not compliant, they need to be compliant. And clearly we've got testimony from the landlord's representative, let's just say the real estate person, Mr. Robinson, that he's gonna talk to them and I'd like more than talk, but I don't know if we can get more than talk.
We can't get more than talk. I think the applicant understands where it is that we're going. I don't know who the site plan was granted to. That obviously carries with the land and its approval. I don't know what we're talking about that may or may not exist now. If we're talking about, let's just say, for instance, a tree, I think that's more difficult to deal with because we'd have to see, was it ever put into the dive? Is there a condition that required maintenance, as opposed to they're supposed to put another exit door on the west side of the building and that was never done. That's a lot easier to deal with. So I think we'd have to see what we're talking about. At the end of the day, I think it does become more of an enforcement issue than an obligation on the part of the applicant.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm happy to not put it in there. I was just thinking of a way. I was thinking of a way in which we can communicate, and I'm looking at Mr. Ross, way that we can communicate to the property owner that.
In a stronger way.
That it's right now, like we've heard from members of the public and the board certainly has concerns about the aesthetic issues that were raised in Mr. Gaddis's report.
I can tell you it's in my notes, and when I talk, I will be as forceful as possible. I will wear my planning board chairman's hat when I have this discussion.
But to Jeff's point, and again, I think we're here for this applicant, for this 4,000 roughly square feet of what they want to do. But I think as another takeaway for another day, maybe we should, it's sort of weird that we have a renter, I don't want to reduce this out into a renter, coming for a land use change without the property owner. So I don't know if that's the same in other towns because we've had it before. So, and I don't want to go through all the other properties we have, but it's a little strange.
It's not required. I mean, they signed off on the application itself. A lot of times, they may or may not, I guess.
Only because some of the things that you want to do, right, we're all in agreement from the members of the public. Very rare does that happen, that everyone's in agreement that the property has to be fixed up. But we can't put it on the applicant that's renting a space that's not even gonna touch the outside. So that's my dilemma. And again, for another day, another discussion to say.
I shouldn't have said it. Sorry.
No, but I get your point, but it's, because you really can't lean on anybody to help the process.
I think we can indicate, and I'm thinking this through, I'm open to suggestions here. The board noted that there are certain conditions of the property that the landlord may want to take care of, something like that may or may not be compliant with prior approvals. Like something to maybe give a little more teeth to going back to the landlord, but not make it a condition of resolution compliance that would be difficult to achieve.
Could we call out specific elements?
You know what I'm saying? Something along those lines.
Specific elements of Beth's report that were as findings.
Because aren't some of those items, we have a property maintenance.
Yes,
And that's kind of where I'm getting.
So that's what I'm saying.
To
Those
kind of
items
say,
tied
hey,
with that.
FYI.
Can we not, I'm not saying put them on notice or anything, but
Correct,
just remind
that's
them that
where
we
I'm
have a
going.
property
That's
maintenance
exactly
ordinance. And we have a very now vigilant zoning officer who may pay the site visit.
That's exactly where I was going with that.
And that may, I mean, again, I think we're, like Todd said, we all kind of agree with what we want to get to. It's just
We'd like to get into the weeds, like, oh, sorry.
Without getting into detail, I'm on it. Okay.
Right.
I have contacts with the owner, so I'm hearing what you're saying and I'm on.
So I was just gonna, I was ready to make a motion.
I was gonna say, we have the things from, Tara, are those the conditions that we are then ready to make a motion based on those conditions as listed, or does anybody have anything else they want to add to that list?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, Dan, I think you were about to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I can make a motion that we approve the D1 variance based on this secret criteria, so the right word term I'm using, as well as, accept their documentation as a minor site plan.
Subject to the conditions.
Subject to the condition, and maybe to that point. Sorry, there's a motion on the table, but I didn't finish talking yet, so I'm just trying to think of the condition, because when you were talking about the, zoning official and property management, couldn't there be a condition that just says, we'd like the zoning official to pay them a visit?
Yeah, we don't want to.
Okay.
Not this job.
Okay, you can't.
People do that. as
You can't.
practice.
Okay, then my motion stands, but no changes to the.
I'll second that.
Okay, then, Eileen, can you call the roll on the zone?
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Dashna.
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
No.
Ms. Giffen,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate the deliberations. Appreciate your board professionals review too.
Well, thank you to your witnesses for the testimony. Okay, give you a few minutes to like vacate the space as it were. We have a few items to finish.
I know all.
Thank you, nice to meet you.
No, I don't need that.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, chair item. There's two listed, but I can just add one more. The Clinton, the fire in Clinton.
Open covered can.
Open cupboard, thank you. I wrote open pantry and I knew it was wrong. But the open cupboard, so fire in Clinton 2 nights ago, and the Walgreens was lost, and the open cupboard food pantry was lost completely. Everything. Oh my God. So, yeah. So the borough is doing collections, has a link.
Everybody, we're just trying to finish up our meeting,
Yes.
if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Lois, I'm just mentioning the open cupboard food pantry that was lost, and the borough is taking up donations if it wants to take part. They have a link, or they're looking for ShopRite cards that they can then give out to their clients while they work out. They've lost all that, whatever was in that building.
What is it, Karen? What is the
The
open?
cupboard food pantry.
Are they an organization, or is that the?
That's your
That's the
organization.
And there's a link on the borough website.
There's a link at the borough website. It's all over other social media platforms. I also know that both the Flemington Area Food Pantry is trying to meet the as is Fisherman's Mart. So if you want to talk to your neighbor Todd, I'm sure she knows everything.
But yeah, if anybody wants to give and help as a borough initiative, that's moving forward. Goodness only knows that's scary enough. I saw the pictures online. If I may, Eileen, I'm going to put committees before the next meeting just to close it out. This is the time to identify any committees that the board wants to use moving forward. We might think. I already talked about what I'm looking for, the checklist, and that we were all going to do that rather than have the committee. So, but if the need arises, then we can discuss that further in the year. You will actually revisit this question later. That's my suggestion for that. The other committee that's been on my radar, I've been talking to Mr. Cook about this and the other people. We've got the sign review committee. Hannah has agreed to continue serving as a planning board member. I've been in touch with the HPC, Wendy Orr, and FCP Robin Lapidus will be there, continued person. Which with the, but then that means with the, we're lost from this board, Trent, we have a space on that. Todd was also obviously on the committee. I've talked with Todd about this and he's in agreement still, hopefully, and when we talk to him to check in. So we have two spaces. We have a general PB member and the chair can go on it. Previously, it was Todd, given to Todd, and then there was Trent. I've spoken with Todd, he's in agreement. He's gonna stay on as our planning board member. And I'm gonna temporarily, I'm gonna say this, it's gonna be like a temporary thing, go on that committee, on that. Simply because in discussing with the stakeholder about who they wanted to have, some issues came up that might need like an umbrella approach over our ordinances, the sign review committee, the zoning, and interlinks with the FCP as well. So it's like a whole interlink of lots of stakeholders that are involved in this thing. But Todd has agreed to effectively stay as he would still do the role he's been doing in terms of applicants, the process that they've been doing in terms of applicants. We'd both be on it, and we've agreed to move forward on that basis. And then when we see what shapes out of this discussion that happens with all the stakeholders, we'll see where that lands. But because that's kind of might be an ordinance change in some level, I just want to grab a hold of that. So I just wanted to let everybody know that those will be the members on that committee. I've asked Beth to give us an idea of some ordinance and master plan things that we might want to work on. We haven't finalized that yet. So I'm putting on notice that I do want to have, I think there might be a need still for the committee that kind of ran last year. But we don't quite know what the remit of that is yet. And I'm also cognizant of our budget, which was discussed last night in council. We have a certain amount of money, but it's definitely nowhere near what you had the years when you did the major change. Like you had like an extra 65,000 or something that year. We might
Also
have,
a grant for some of the work.
right, sure, but we don't have that, and we only have a little bit to do. So I want, before we set that up, I want to focus on what it's going to look at. We also have to think about the HPC change and any monies that would be involved in the checklist with that money involved with that money. So I want to spend it wisely and think about it. But if that committee needs to form, the previous members of the mayor and Dennis have agreed to continue. I would like to go on it. And I also asked if Ryan, Mr. Smino was interested in being involved in that, and he agreed he would be. So even when it forms, that would probably be the mate for that committee. Just put everyone on notice. But right now it doesn't have a scope and we don't have how much we're going to meet. We're just going to work out what we can do within the money and then we'll meet accordingly. But it is my general intention, as it is with the checklist, to try and have all board members involved in most of these decisions in any way, shape or form. Right, but just use a committee when it becomes unwieldy to use the whole board with the board's permission. That would be my intended way forward. So I hope that clears that up. To move away from that, I don't know of any other committees that we need to form. Does anybody? I couldn't think of any.
You do have the ability to have a technical review committee that's standing. We have never done that as a board, but when I look at the ordinance, you can say when there's a technical review committee, but what's happened in the past is whether there's certain interests or an applicant comes up and says, hey, I need, and usually folks come out of the woodwork and say, I'd love to work on that project, or they're only available in the morning. So I just wanted to cite that because when I was looking at all the committees that we may or may not have, I came across that one that says, you can name it today. This is the technical review committee for whatever. We have not done that. Jeff didn't do it. I didn't do it. So again,
because I see the point, as you say, if you have different people for different things, it depends what technical review comes in.
Correct.
And we don't.
Correct.
And the other thing that I think we've experienced is that because of the nature of the small town we live in, you don't want to run into conflicts, right? If we had a larger township and the odds of a conflict were much lower, and then having a standing TRC makes a little bit more sense, I think.
Yeah, if we mapped ourselves out, we cover most of the borough.
All of our.
Within 200 feet at this point,
We got the
navigate between. Yeah. So that would be that for now, I think.
The only other committee that we used to have, there's been other things that have popped up. So we had a committee, we had a census committee years ago. We had the rule that obviously doesn't need to be in place. We had a committee, once upon a time, there was a website committee. We have, over the last several years, we had committee dealing with rules of citizen input and those kinds of things. We just did that. We don't need to do it. You know, I think that, the stuff that we've had in the last several years, I don't think there's anything that's like,
I'm glad you felt the same way, because I'm like, I can't think of anything we need to do this year right now, especially considering the budget constraints we may have this year, because everything's a bit tight. I was listening to the discussion last night in council. They're probably gonna come to us and see if I can cut that budget, but we'll see. So next meeting, and actually, let's look ahead to the next two as well. And so next week, we definitely have less wellness coming back for a resolution, right?
Right.
And then we have public hearing for Central Station. Cross your fingers. And we all got, there was a snafu with the
Yeah,
information.
with the
If
Dropbox.
everybody managed to get hold of those information,
Yeah.
new information.
I was able to access that link and put everything onto the website. So I'm happy with that. We also have, completeness for the 100
100 completeness, right? Right,
So we need to submit something.
right.
I think we will.
We'll see what we say.
If
All
we
right.
get some.
For the next meeting on the 12th, I just want to let folks know, I may have to attend virtually.
Okay.
But I should be present.
And also, 12, Ian from Health and my office. I think.
Now that's central, so it's all over. Excellent. But that's all I have for chair items, unless anybody else has
Do you want to do the
once, you said the 26th.
Oh, I did say we'd talk about the 26th. See, job what's on the 26th now? We have
Continuation of Chick-fil-A. And we have to continue, we announced for Wordsville as well. They both need to submit some revised documents.
So that's dependent on them submitting, and we need 10 days before the 26th and 16th. For people to review.
And I don't know if there's 10 days is even you know.
That's minimal, right? I'm just thinking.
Right.
I did receive a call from Chick-fil-A. They
Oh, yeah.
are in the process of changing the plan. I forget what they told me it was about, but it sounded like it's pretty imminent.
Okay.
Can I ask a question on order on the 26th?
Yeah,
So I'm recusing from Wardsville. And
okay,
then we've got Chick-fil-A, which I'm participating on,
right.
and then T, I have no issues. Which is gonna happen first in the meeting? So I know if I'm coming or not, when I'm
Can I
coming.
consider your mention of what your availability, and then when we're writing the agenda, I'll keep that in mind.
I mean, whatever, you figure it out. I'm just
You
saying.
want to be in person for the other thing.
I would very much like the opportunity again to hear from the Chick-fil-A folks, yes.
Okay,
Well,
that's
it
it.
sounds like they are submitting their documents.
Yeah.
Possibly. There's also a escrow issue with Wardsville. I sent a letter a couple of weeks ago, and I haven't heard back. And then there were some other invoices that came in this week that exacerbates that. So I'll be sending out another one tomorrow. So
I mean, the fact is, we generally, older stuff goes first. So Wardsville, it's generally, and you obviously can set the agenda, so Wardsville would theoretically come before Chick-fil-A because of.
well, it also
Well,
depends on how
depends
the
on
plans
the
are
stuff.
submitted, the revised plans. So
And then,
you know.
but then we also do have that if T passes completeness, if they were on the agenda. How we
These are all just
feel about,
possibilities.
yeah, there's possibilities,
So just give me,
and I appreciate that.
do with it as you will.
And we'll see what shakes out. Let's see what happens on that day, because from today, we changed everything for the last minute. We did it.
That's what usually happens.
Yeah.
This is normal.
Okay. All right, so moving on from that then, item 13 is the bills. We have quite a slew of bills come through the last minute today, but there's a lot on there. But can I get a motion to audit the bills for distribution?
So moved, Cook.
I'll second that.
Yeah, can we do a roll call on that, please? Eileen?
Mr. Cook?
Yeah.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Campion? Yeah, man. I'm sorry, I'm skipping.
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Weitzman?
Yes.
Reno?
Yes.
Mr. Connell?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, item 14, do we have any to go into executive sessions? All right, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Place.
Recording.